Hey there, everybody, and welcome to the tip-off on this Thursday, the show that sets the stage for the most important news, daily fantasy plays, and bets on tonight's 8-game NBA slate. I am your host, Kayla Knierim. Joining me today, we've got the one and only Chris Spags and Dr. Ben Rasa. Guys, good to see you. We're going to have a fun show today.
I'm feeling that too. It's always great to have Ben here, and I'm glad to get the introduction of being the one and only because I'm going hatless on the show for the first time in a while. I'm going hatless. I feel a little bit threadbare there. My girlfriend's out of town, so I'm just going to be drinking leftover margaritas tonight from Cinco de Mayo. So I think for me, I'm feeling confident, but I guess a little more insecure than I might otherwise feel on one of our tip-off shows.
Feel the same. Happy to be on. About the same. Grinding golf. It's a disaster area. Normally, I try to put a spin on Thursday saying, there's a lot of golf left. No, there's not a lot of golf left for my golfers. They've played enough this week, not my week. So you know what? We're going to focus on the NBA. We've got a good slate tonight in this. Even though I'm against the play-in tournament, I will say it makes these type of nights a lot more interesting. More teams than normal would be in the hunt. There's a lot of teams out there that are still playing really hard, and that makes these shows a lot more exciting.
Absolutely. And we're going to get to it all today. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for countless hours of content on the NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, MMA, NASCAR, and every other sport that's in season. Let's talk about our sponsor, No House Advantage, who is taking a different spin on daily fantasy sports by offering player prop contests across the NBA, MLB, NFL, and PGA for cash prizes. This exclusively peer-to-peer fantasy sports platform levels the playing field and makes it easier for you to win real cash compared with your traditional DFS sites. With over 500 player prop offerings, No House Advantage is the largest provider of player props in the industry. And the best part is that you will receive a $20 first match deposit bonus today with promo code Awesemo. Be your friends, not the house. Download the app in the store and win big with player props today. Heading right into our bad beats. Last night had another wild NBA slate, and we've currently got MLB games and PGA events going on right now. How has it all been for you guys? Ben, we're going to start with you, as you mentioned golf earlier.
Yeah, so golf has been, this week just right. There looks like there's going to be a significant wind split, and that's annoying in itself. So the guys that played this morning seem to have gotten the worst of it. Rahm would be one of them. Certainly not a bad beat in there. They just did not handle the course. So they're going to have to rally. I did not bet baseball today. That's a win in itself. Thank God. I leave that to Spags. But yeah, the golf, I love this tournament. It's at Quail Hollow. We've got a major in 2 weeks. I'm definitely going to put that in the tip-off show run sheet. We're going to get some golf on this show, even though the tournament will be tipped off. But yeah, overall, pretty standard Thursday for me. So nothing to complain about for a change.
Yeah, for me, it was an interesting slate with NBA yesterday where I got some things very right. Kelly Olynyk, a guy talked about some of the shows yesterday, and ended up playing him a lot more than the field, which was great. The issue that I had was Kevin Porter Jr. got hurt in the third quarter, and Giannis Antetokounmpo had a really mediocre game. And it was something where I was watching our game plan video, which one of the streams here, it's a premium-only stream that you get if you're an Awesemo Plus member, and it's usually guys like Steve Buzzard or Alex or Terry or Sean's on going through, what top DFS players are doing, some of the strategies, some of the approaches, and all of that. And then before our show, I was watching Steve Buzzard, and he was like, yeah, like all these guys were like the top 20 DFS player type guys who were playing 150 lineups yesterday, all at 75 to 80% Kevin Porter Jr. So I'll say that's a good beat that I, in fact, got completely killed yesterday, but I felt like I was amongst good company while doing so. And that's really all you can ask for at the end of the day.
Spags, I don't think I've seen you without a hat.
No, I mean, I take it off here and there during shows, but yeah, I usually go hat free because, so here's the thing people don't get when we're doing shows. Obviously, people see Kayla, they know that you're putting in some degree of effort in your appearance. Even for Ben and I, like you want to be on camera and maintain some sort of consistency. And when you're doing streams all hours of the night, for me, waking up at 6 a.m. some days to do shows, I just throw on a hat and then throw on a hoodie or whatever I have to try to keep looking the same. So for all the fellas out there, this is what it's all about. Looking beautiful on a stream is this thing that I have going on right now after a year of haircuts at home.
I refuse to be on camera before at least 11 a.m. It's just not going to work.
I agree.
These eyes are puffy in the morning.
I get progressively worse. Like I wish this show was
really?
at 8 a.m. Like, but you should see my golf show. I'm like half asleep. I'm burnt out by them. That show's at night, me and Eric last night. But yeah, I prefer morning shows for sure.
I thrive the later the day gets on.
Nope.
Yeah, same for me, I think. I'm more of a late show guy, but I'll do whenever. Hey, put a camera on, tell me I have to yammer away about something. I'm happy to do it as long as I'm being paid for it.
Ben, going back to golf really, really quick. How many majors are left? We've got what, British and
3.
PGA? And
the US Open. Yeah,
and
just
US.
the
Okay.
Masters. So we're back
Oh,
on
all
normal
right.
schedule this year. Thank God. It'll be coming up. It's heating up the golf season.
Golf. It sure is. Cannot wait. Love golf. All right. Let's talk about the NBA now. NBA now. We've got Kristaps Porzingis and Maxi Kleber will both be out again tonight in what should be a high-scoring affair versus the Nets. Which Mavs should benefit in this marquee game on the slate, Spags?
I think for me, the big beneficiary looks like it's going to be Luka Doncic. And I think that's sort of an obvious one where we talk about the rates, generally with Luka, where he gets a little bit more usage, loses something on his assist rate for the most part in games without Kristaps Porzingis. But now you have Kleber out too. And I think that, the main thing is going to be the production ends up concentrating a little bit more where Luka's not going to get more minutes, but he's going to get a few more shots up in the flow of the offense. I think the minutes beneficiary probably is going to be someone, Tim Hardaway Jr. would be the guy that I would expect to get an uptick the most, where they just need another scorer out there. Not that Kleber's a scorer, but he is a guy who can stretch the floor. Hardaway will do that role. And then for the big minutes, you probably get a little bit more Willie Cauley-Stein. To me, he looks like the most usable value for the DFS slate tonight. But overall, I think it's not a huge impact for the Mavs tonight against the Nets. I think really overall, it's just one that I expect Luka to be more efficient and possibly have the kind of ceiling for DFS slates or for betting tonight that could make it very much a must-have against the Nets.
Yeah, and this is a big game. I already alluded to this. I'm going to say it multiple times. Like the Mavericks would be kind of, just positioning. They're really trying to win these games to avoid the play-in situation. Them, the Blazers, the Lakers, a lot of teams got big things to play for. So they're a 4-point home dog, 235.5 total here. I certainly expect Luka to log major minutes. I mean, we knew he would with or without these injuries, as Spags talked about. You've got Hardaway Jr., who he makes sense with the middling price tag. I will say, and it's early, I was a little surprised to see his ownership right now north of 20%, what we're projecting. That's to me pretty heavy. He's certainly going to have some opportunities there, but this doesn't scream plug and play to me. And then, Cauley-Stein at flat 3. I don't think you really need to go there, to be honest. But if you're in a jam, if you're being very, very aggressive, certainly that's going to free up some salary. So despite it being, two key pieces of the Mavericks, it's really Luka, who obviously is always involved, but I think it just solidifies even more that if they're going to steal this game at home, he's going to have, a triple-double S type effort and output.
Zach LaVine is probable to return tonight in a game against the Hornets after a long stint on the sidelines due to health protocols. Is he in play tonight, and how does he affect the Bulls' outlook, Ben?
So I think I've been saying this with a lot of guys, and this isn't exactly the same as LeBron and Anthony Davis and whatnot, but I don't think he's in play. And furthermore, I think it makes it more difficult to get to any other Bull. You just look, he's obviously going to contribute. And I think his minutes, it's not like he's going to get eased back in per se, but his price is still, 9,100. That's pretty premium for me in this spot. And then you look at Vooch, again, over 10,000. I think these are just very difficult situations to get to. So with Zach LaVine back, obviously the Bulls in general, if you're looking on the betting side of things, they're a favorite. Now, they're 3.5-point favorite in Charlotte here, 218.5 total. That's directly impacted, of course, by LaVine being available. But on the DFS side, I don't know if I really see it. And certainly guys like Kobe White are going to take a slight hit, and everyone else on the Bulls, I don't see a ton of value for this team either.
Yeah, that's where I am too. I think at the price point for LaVine, I just don't get. And I think it's something where it would have been smart for the sites with their pricing algorithms to factor in, like, not that Zach LaVine has to come back in and be a 3K player, but for him, Anthony Davis, I think for people to take on that risk meaningfully, I would have these guys at 7K, maybe even high 6s, just to sort of say like, hey, here, we're going to tempt you into playing this guy. We don't know what his minutes are going to be. But even, besides all that, sometimes it would work out, sometimes it wouldn't. I think we've seen that go both ways this year with the health protocols. But for this spot, 9,100, I don't see playing him. And now the other guys, like as Ben was saying, these guys are priced up for a situation where LaVine was out. And that's the kind of plays that you just don't want to make for the most part. You can make them a little bit in a GPP in a tournament. I think for betting too, like the Bulls are going to be a favorite today on the road. I feel like that to me is a little bit overvalued too for LaVine coming back, because it's not like the Bulls were world beaters before that. The Hornets are actually a better team on the year for the most part. So I would say even with their injuries, I just don't think this is a logical spot from betting. I think you're getting kind of ripped off for both betting and for DFS tonight, just because of Zach LaVine being back in the mix.
Malcolm Brogdon and Goga are questionable once again versus Atlanta after Brogdon sat last game and Goga made his return. Spags, how does it look for Indiana if these guys are in or out?
So for Indiana right now, I think it's something where I mentioned the other day and it ended up coming true, I guess, to some extent, that having either Goga or Brogdon in was going to decrease Sabonis' ceiling a little bit. He also just had, a weird day where he didn't get a lot of usage in that one, and Indiana just mostly looked ineffective throughout. Karis LeVert was even worse in that game. But I do think, to me, Sabonis at his current price point is only going to be playable if Brogdon is out again. I wouldn't mind seeing Goga out as well. Just ensure that there is a little bit more center run for Sabonis. Goga played 20 minutes in that last game. Also had a viral altercation with his coach that who knows how that's going to go with today. Maybe he ends up sitting out a game as sort of a, I'm injured, but also there's like an informal punishment for just going tete-a-tete with one of the assistants. But I think, to me, getting both guys out is really the only way I would play Sabonis. Kind of feel the same way about LeVert, though I think a LeVert bounce back day isn't crazy. I think really these guys, to me, you need Brogdon to be out right now with where their price points are.
It makes it tough. Now, you can always take the other side and you say that the ownership is going to be depressed because it's not the best situation. And Sabonis has shown, dangerous. He could have had 100 in that game if they weren't up by 90 points against your Thunder. But that's neither here nor there. You look at this is a game, massive total, 240 total. Pacers 6.5-point home dogs. It's a game that, they really could use. Atlanta could use it too. So I think the minutes will be there. But it's hard to argue with Spags in the sense that you're taking a pretty thin margin. If these guys are ruled in, these price points are to a premium. You're not creating any value. The only thing that you're doing is you're leveraging in tournaments. If you get that ceiling, that really narrow, you're not going to be with a ton of people. The ownerships on LeVert and Sabonis, if these guys are ruled in, are not going to be popular tonight. But I think that's probably warranted. So it's a risk reward. And on a slate with 8 games, I'm more prone to say, you know what? Don't really be crazy here. Don't pay a massive premium for guys unless we get the injury news to break our way.
Miles Bridges will be out again with health protocols, while Devontae Graham is doubtful tonight, and PJ Washington is expected to return versus the Bulls. Do any Hornets stand out as they did last time with a more shorthanded squad, Ben?
So this is a team, and again, we talked about the other side of this game with the Bulls, where I don't have a ton of interest. And the Hornets are another team. They're a home dog. I think this is where you're going to get some value. Certainly, Caleb Martin is going to be popular, and I see it sub 4K price tag. The minutes we have him projected right now for around 30. That's going to be really healthy. If you can get there, Wanamaker's another guy, really cheap price tag, obviously for salary relief. They look good. I just don't know exactly what else I can say about Charlotte. Certainly, if you want to go to LaMelo, I guess I'm kind of indifferent to that play. If you land there and you need kind of a middling price tag, I have no problem with it. But I don't really see much else. So I have a feeling most people are going to use the Hornets tonight for salary relief, and that's really the prudent play.
Yeah, I think Caleb Martin would be the guy that you have to look at first and foremost. He's not 3K minimum anymore on DraftKings, so that does make it a little bit tougher. Brad Wanamaker will probably pop up in optimizers, and it did seem that they did make a choice last game to go. James Borrego, obviously the head coach, choosing to go a little more with Brad Wanamaker than Malik Monk, and that could have been because Malik Monk was shooting poorly, and that's going to happen on some days with Monk. Maybe him missing some court time, maybe him having that suspension and all of that. I think there could be some ways here where maybe Monk has fallen out of favor and Wanamaker's minutes maybe a little more secure than it seems, but that is something that's definitely a little more volatile. But I think LaMelo is really the play here where I think there's a bit of a benefit. PJ Washington being back in, it worries me that he squeezes the margins for Caleb Martin enough that he just isn't going to have that good of a day. And if he puts up 20 fantasy points at his price tag, maybe that doesn't kill you in a tournament, but I don't know. It's one that I want to have to get crazy above the field on, maybe just a little bit above the field. So to me, LaMelo is the one I feel the most confident in. And I think maybe PJ Washington too, targeting him coming back to the lineup, people not going to be on him as much, but he was out last game and coming back in today. He's going into a better situation with no Miles Bridges. He could absorb a lot of that production in a way that also hurts a potentially chalky play in Caleb Martin. So I think maybe there's some tournament logic to PJ Washington in particular.
The Pistons will have Hamidou Diallo, Jeremy Grant, Josh Jackson, and Mason Plumlee out tonight, while Killian Hayes, Corey Joseph, and Wayne Ellington are all questionable. Spags, who stands out for the tanking Pistons at home versus Memphis?
So for Detroit, I think the guy is going to end up, and it seems according to our ownership projections at Awesemo.com, that Sekou Doumbouya is going to be one of the chalk plays in the slate. I don't know the confidence level I have in that one. He has been a guy I've landed on just sort of fortunately by the process I've been using recently with trying to get my exposures from the boom bust tool because I have Sekou Doumbouya projected decently well. He's been popping up a little bit more for me, and he's had these outlier days recently that I feel like have been a little bit luck box for me. He's been certainly forcing his shot, but I just don't know if that can hold up very long. But he is in play as a chalk option. The one guy I'm really looking at, though, is if you somehow do get both Killian Hayes and Corey Joseph sitting. And I do think the risk here is that if Hayes is out, they just put Joseph in to play some amount of minutes just to curb this guy's upside. But Saben Lee has been the best point guard on this team, I think, all year long, I guess, besides that one hot run for Corey Joseph. And if he somehow can get you a full run of minutes here at almost minimum salary, I think that is a really nice option as a guy who's just been super productive and deserves more run than he's had. So to me, watching out for Killian Hayes and Corey Joseph somehow being out, if that opens up Saben Lee, I think he's one of the strongest players on the slate.
God, the Pistons. Every time I'm on the show, the Pistons play, and they're equally abysmal each time. 9-point home dogs here, 222 total. Yeah, I mean, what's there to say? Certainly Demboya is going to be chalk option, chalk value. I think it's pretty interesting, though, looking at some of these other Pistons. I mean, these are guys that, obviously we don't know a ton about them at times, but they do have some incentive to showcase them, to allocate these minutes, particularly if any of these guys are going to have opportunities in the future. And I do see that with some of them. And it looks like Joseph may be ruled. Yeah, Joseph's out. So that's one more Spags in your direction to solidify that with Saben Lee and whatnot. So I guess it's a situation, again, how much value do you need? You're going to prioritize these guys. We already talked about Caleb Martin. You're not going to need all of them unless you're really going stars and scrubs. But that's a situation. I wanted to ask you, though, just to kind of pass it back to you quickly. When we're at this time of the year, do you bump down teams like the Pistons who have truly nothing to play for over teams that are, a little more projectable because they're fighting for their lives?
So just one about Corey Joseph, I'm confused now because I think people may be talking about him being out from the other day. He was upgraded to questionable on the report this morning. So I think this is one I haven't seen an update from any of the accounts that would be having this news. So I think that one is still up in the air. So just keep that in mind for anybody assuming he's already out there like the chat seems to be. But I think your point is an interesting one because like for Orlando, I think, you could see it with what Gary Harris did recently where they basically played him 10 minutes the other game because they had other bodies they can go to. Gary Harris was playing too well. And they were just like, yeah, we don't need this. There's no upside to play Gary Harris and have him soak up all the usage. So they put him on the bench. And I think that's where it comes into question is more the vets. Whereas for a team like Detroit, they've been giving Saben Lee some amount of minutes. They've been giving Sadiq Bey a good amount of minutes. They've been giving Killian Hayes, who's their first round draft pick, that they have clearly the most capital, the most front office, actual emotional capital invested in, giving that guy a lot of minutes. So I think it goes the other way where, hey, you rely on the young guys more. You want to see Sekou have an upside. He was another first round draft pick last year, I think it was a first rounder, but definitely a higher draft pick last year. And he's a guy that's been, not the best, but you just want to see him get that run. So I think if anything, just gives you more confidence that they're going to give these young dudes who they have to save some degree of face on more opportunity. So I wouldn't downgrade them. If anything, I would upgrade just those guys that you just haven't seen proven on a court yet.
Okay, that'll do it for our NBA key news. DFS friends, get access to all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content for nearly every DFS sport out there with an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. This includes full access to all the premium content and tools on Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, our premium Slack channel, lineup builder, and much more. If you're only looking to play NBA DFS, then sign up now for our Awesemo Plus NBA weekly package for just $16.95 or our $4.95 NBA Weekly Express package, which gives you full Awesemo Plus access to NBA Showdown and single game contest. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. Quick shout out to Nightbot in the chat for plugging Side Action. Appreciate that. Go to Side Action YouTube page, subscribe. I do videos for them daily. All things about athletes off the court, off the field. Lots of fun. That's my plug for the day. Guys, anything you want to plug while we're here?
I want to plug Nightbot, I guess, being in the chat. I assume that's our guy Joey pretending to be Nightbot, which I think is a fun wrinkle, and I appreciate Joey's commitment to continuing to impersonate people on our YouTube channel. But
so there's two Nightbots.
The real Nightbot you could tell is only one word. Our fake Nightbot is two words, and that's why it would have been really good on MTV's Catfish if I ever got the opportunity. I could sniff this shit out right away.
Yeah, man. I had no clue what was going on there. No idea. Spags is all over it as usual.
You thought Nightbot gained autonomy throughout the show?
Yeah, I'm like, wow, this is 2021. Can't hold anything back now. Like, this is just lawless, but apparently not. So that's why we pay the big bucks around here. Keep us all even keeled.
Thanks, Joey. Appreciate it. Also, Spags, if you're someone who's into catfishing, I have some cases for you I needed to like dive into.
I just think I'm very good at sniffing out people's inorganic qualities and like whether they're being authentic. Cause like, as you can tell, like I like to aspire. I think this show, what we do is we just act like ourselves. And I think that's always the tell is that when people act a certain way online, you just know like, you're putting up a front, but I'll help you out, Kayla. I'll help we hunting some men's. Is that what we're doing?
I have one friend who has a crazy story, and I've told her she needs to get on Catfish because it is wild.
Girls getting catfished is wild to me because like you could literally just walk down the street and go, oh, there's a guy like would love to pamper me for the rest of my life. I don't, that might be me being naive as a guy, obviously, and maybe it's somewhat misogynistic. So my apologies if so. But I would say for the most part, like guys getting duped online, like we're idiots especially some of the people you'll find, DMing random accounts that are like clearly the fake one. There's a verified one. So I don't know. I just feel like women should be above board on that part.
I mean, this story has so many layers to it, which I won't bore you with here, but yeah, she
Got
met him on Hinge. Met him on Hinge, has never met in person, met with his assistant, never seen him face to face. He says he has to have his camera off on his phone because of his job. Apparently he's like a financial advisor for celebrities. But he sent pictures of himself and she's looked at the geotag and it's where he says he is. Can't find him anywhere on the internet. Name doesn't exist. We think he may be with the CIA or he's just living in his parents' basement somewhere. I called his old number that he said he didn't have anymore. It went to a tow company in Los Angeles, like downtown. Then I star 69 myself or whatever it is. Is that right? I don't know. He calls back after I'd blocked my number because she was like, will you call and see if this is him? Calls me back after I called him on a block number because he has a software that like cancels out the block. This guy is nutso. Anyway, it's a whole thing that Neem needs to handle, not me. I tried helping her out, but
sounds to me like two boys on top of each other's shoulders underneath a trench coat, like Vincent Adultman on BoJack Horseman.
I don't know. It was weird.
You got to be careful. Last thing I'll say, you got to be careful out there.
Yeah, it's scary.
Like, people impersonating doctors, other big time professions. You just don't know about the internet. There's a lot of people out there that do some things you would never imagine that they're not who they say they are.
We'll take it from you, Dr. Ben.
That's true.
All right, let's get to MVP odds. There's been a lot of debate recently over the MVP with talking head Nick Wright calling Nikola Jokic potentially the worst MVP in the last 35 years, who is currently the front runner. Here are the current top 5 odds getters for NBA MVP according to OddsShopper. I want to know what you guys think of each candidate. We're going to start again with a favorite, Nikola Jokic, minus 1,400. Ben, we'll start with you.
Well, that's fantastic because as I said before the show, I need to take a victory lap when I can get one these days. I have a Jokic ticket. I'm very excited to see him running away with this. He is the MVP. He's going to win. He should win. He's played in every game. That's really when we go through this, what I really want to get into, Spags, is that obviously I think Jokic kind of has this wrapped up, but if everybody was healthy, if Embiid didn't get hurt, if Steph didn't miss a little time here and there, where would we be? And I think that's part of the reason that a lot of people are saying this is a weak MVP is that it kind of fell to Jokic as people went down in some ways. Now, I think he's been fantastic. I think he's a deserving MVP. But that's my one, I think, legitimate gripe that some of the other guys kind of missed their opportunity because they just weren't healthy.
Yeah, and I think that's something with Jokic where I wouldn't place this bet now. I think somebody like Ben who got the odds earlier in the year where I'm sure it was plus money, like that's when you wanted to place it. Now it does seem like more like a sure thing. And for Jokic, the case is really that it's an expression that's been said a lot, but the best ability is sometimes availability. And Jokic has been there every single day for the Nuggets where they've had guys going in and out of the lineup. They've had guys traded who are key parts or perceived to be key parts of the team in the past, like Gary Harris. Then you have Jamal Murray go down. You have Will Barton go down. And Kayla's guy, Michael Porter Jr. has pulled some of that weight too, improving and taking on some more usage, hitting some more shots and all of that. But it really does begin and end with Jokic. And I just don't get how, and obviously we look at the data at a more, advanced level, everybody out there as well, not just us here on the Awesemo side of things, but you guys out there are looking at usage, you're looking at assist rate, you see all these things. And Jokic is really on a category of his own, amidst point guards, amidst the LeBrons, the Lucas. I mean, he's better than LeBron in assist rate this year. That's not a question. That's just an actual data point. And I think that's something that people just miss is that they sometimes see like, oh, Jokic had a 13, 12 and 8 day. like, he's not a star. He's just doing a little bit of everything. And to me, I think that's the most important part, especially when you are the guy who's making it happen. And defensively, he's a little better than people realize too, in terms of just, good team defense, not a shutdown one-on-one defender like people always like to look to, but just a good dude. So he is, to me, very deserving of the MVP. And I think for the rest of these guys, like, maybe there's a chance he somehow doesn't get there because of these old media type dudes or talking head type guys not wanting to vote for him. But I would hope for all of us out there who are, following basketball a little more analytically, that you just realize, like, yeah, Jokic has been the dude, and he's also been that dude every single night.
Dr. Ben was on it.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I was so fortunate that he didn't, part of it is getting lucky that these guys stay healthy. And I think one of the other points to it is Jamal Murray goes down. And I think a lot of people wondered what would happen to Denver. And it's not just him. Certainly Porter has stepped up, but they've thrived. And Jokic has every step of the way been fantastic. I know the West is not exactly how they planned it, certainly with the Suns and some of these other teams, but no doubt that he is the MVP. But I think he's obviously unbettable now. But the question that I kind of brought up before, Spags, that I want to ask you is, what do you think would have happened? Certainly Embiid's fantastic. Chad has just pointed this out. A lot of people are team Embiid between these two. Where do you fall that? Clearly, I think it's just the fact that he wasn't healthy at times and the fact that his full court shot didn't go in. Honestly, I think that could have been a catalyst. If that would have went in that game, that would have been too much for me to handle. But where do you see him if he was healthy? Do you think he would be in the lead?
Embiid, if he were healthy, I think the tough part for him is that you do have Ben Simmons there. You do have, and Tobias Harris is not perceived on the same level, but I do think people view those guys and don't look at Tobias Harris and go, well, he's scoring 20 points a game too, or see Ben Simmons and go, well, that guy's like a triple double a night too. So he's pulling his share of the weight. And I think the thing with the MVP award, and I would view it differently. I just, I'm going off of based on how the media has approached over the last few years, is that you have to be a guy on a top 3 team. You have to be a guy who's basically carried the load, and you have to be a guy who played 75% of the games for the most part, maybe 80%, I guess. Would be the benchmark to look at there. And Embiid's, done the best he can. He's played some games this year, I think, that we thought he wouldn't make it through, but there were enough missed here with the health protocols, with his actual injuries that have gone on. And you add in 2 stars with them, where, like, I might think he's as important of a player for his team as Jokic is, but I don't think, to me, he's the MVP just because, like, who can you point to for Jokic that's like, this guy is really helping him out? Like, Murray was kind of down this year. Porter Jr. started slow and had some down stretches too. Nobody's propped him up quite as much as I think the Sixers teammates have Embiid.
All right. We should note he's currently at plus 950. Following Embiid, there's Giannis at plus 2,500. Spags.
So I still wouldn't hate this one. And Giannis too has missed more than enough games. And I don't think it's a realistic shot, but he at plus 2,500, a Milwaukee team that still could end up one of the top seeds. And if you do end up as a top seed, I don't think that Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton are getting quite the respect. Again, not a bet I have the most confidence in. I guess the bet here that I think we're going to have the best potential of it even upsetting here might be coming up next, but I like Giannis as a pick. I think plus 2,500 to me, if he had played all year long and you got those odds, I think you'd feel pretty good about it. But I feel like there's a little bit of Giannis fatigue too, because he hasn't won in the playoffs in enough of a meaningful way for the media narratives. And I think, to me, maybe just gets a little bit underrated because he was a little bit less productive this year than he was last year.
Yeah, I think people are just, it's not just me. The bubble was not good to the Bucks, and I think that's carried over to an extent. People are just like, nobody cares, win something. And I think that's kind of where Milwaukee is until they do it in the playoffs. Giannis already has one, this is a guy, he's got the awards, but he doesn't have the rings just yet. And I think there's an element of that. This is a biased award. People vote. It's not just based strictly on numbers, of course, but he has absolutely no chance to win, in my opinion. I think Steph at the same odds, who we're going to get to next, is probably, if you were going to take a dark horse. I just find it interesting, though, Chat is bringing up Westbrook, who also has no chance to win. But I do see where you're going there. I think the question there is, can you, Spags, you were just talking about this, can you be the MVP if your team is struggling to get in the play-in games for the playoffs?
Yes.
There it is. Now we've answered that. So where do we go? I think that's, Westbrook's unbelievable. I root for him. He's unbelievable what he does. It's just hard to look at a team like the Wizards and think that the MVP could come from a pretty bad squad at this point.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I do think Westbrook should be higher. And I know Tony in the chat also bringing up Julius Randle, and those guys, to me, I'm a little more intrigued by than like, I think Giannis, you're getting the odds here for guys who have the pedigree more so. And you can see on the odds shopper page that Jordan has up on the screen now that some of the other guys are much further down the board and seemingly have no shot. But I think Westbrook's intriguing because he really, if the Wizards make the playoffs and do make the playoffs comfortably where they don't end up in the play-in game somehow, they're 5 games out of the 7 spot right now. So maybe there's some way they could do that. Maybe you can make the case because he is the one different part between the Wizards last year and this year is that you add Westbrook and all of a sudden they're a team that's actually making the playoffs and not getting even in the play-in tournament. So I think that's the one pathway there. But I think we can just go to Steph because I think to me, your point there, Ben, is one that I was waiting to make too, is that Steph in this spot in the 9 spot right now in the West, probably going to be in the play-in tournament, but there's still a chance that he's not. If they somehow can get shot into the top 5, I think Steph has a very realistic shot here to be the MVP just because you look at the Warriors and they've had some decent days when Steph has been out. Guys like Wiggins having more upside. Jordan Poole did the best he could with the role he was given. But this team is really living and dying by Steph just hitting an unconscionable amount of threes each night. So if I were to take any of these bets right now, I think taking Steph at plus 2,500 would be my pick.
All right. And then last, we've got Damian Lillard plus 6,000 Spags.
I don't get this one, honestly. Like, I feel like he should be, I would put Julius Randle above this. I'd put Chris Paul in this range too, because I think there's more of a narrative there. I think, honestly, even Trae Young, I might consider a little bit higher. I like Damian Lillard, so no disrespect to him, but he missed a good amount of games this year. CJ McCollum, I think, carried the load for parts, but wasn't as impressive as he was last year in games without McCollum. So to me, I think there are a lot of things to point to where I like Dame a lot. I think his odds are the most overvalued, even, amidst everybody else we talked about in this top 5.
So one of the things that I think is really confusing about that, I totally agree. And I think it goes down to like the concept of expectations versus reality. Like the Blazers are kind of where I think most people expected them to be, maybe a little worse. The Suns are fighting for the 1 seed. Like Chris Paul has a serious impact of what's happened there. Julius Randle and the Knicks cashed their win total like months ago. It's been one of the most impressive teams in terms of expectations for reality. So those guys definitely, in my book, get a huge boost just because of how out of left field it is. When you look at Lillard and you look at the Blazers, I don't really see anything where it's like, wow, I didn't see that coming. Dame's done something I never expected. He's been his usual great self. And I think in an MVP conversation, sometimes that works to a detriment of you. And he has, not that it matters, but he has absolutely no chance. There's a lot of guys not even on this list that I would have before him.
Okay. Different odds that have nothing to do with this. Saw in the chat, Ryan asked, where do we think Pujols lands?
Retirement?
That's where he should land. Maybe the White Sox reunite with his boy.
He should go back to the Cardinals without question. Finish his career in St. Louis. Storybook ending. Please and thank you.
My favorite Twitter handle we've talked about many times on the show, the at Best Fans in St. Louis one. I forget what the actual one is, but you can find it if you just search that. They had we're retweeting tweets from when Pujols first left the Cardinals, and let's just say there were a lot of borderline racist ones, and quite a bit of people who did not know the difference between a trader (TRADER) and a traitor (TRAITOR).
Spelling is hard.
No, it is. It's spelling, not telling. That's what we always say as a Cardinals fan, I'm sure.
Oh my gosh. No, St. Louis was very salty after he left. I will say that. So I think enough time has passed. It's been what, like 10 years, 10 years?
Yeah, I think it's legitimately 10 years. Yeah.
I think we're good. I think, it would be really, really awesome to see him finish his career in St. Louis where he belongs. That's my 2 cents. All right, let's head over to one-on-one. And these battles between stars, which player would you rather have in NBA DFS or prop bets tonight? Luka Doncic will be without Kristaps Porzingis by his side tonight versus Brooklyn. Russell Westbrook is a man who's never needed anyone by his side. Heard that. And he'll bring his current hot run on the road against Toronto. Who would you prefer in this one-on-one, Luka or Russ, Ben?
So certainly you could tell me either of these and I totally get it. We talked about Luka before. Porzingis not being there, it just clears the deck for him to do everything and more to try to get a win against the Nets here. But I don't know how you don't say Westbrook, honestly. He's just playing at a level. We talked about this a little with the MVP conversation. It's just he's doing everything. They are fighting for their lives. I thought they played really well against Milwaukee. They had chances to win that game, just came up a little short. This is another winnable game. They're a 2-point dog on the road. Westbrook could push for 40 minutes here. I think he's going to be has the highest chance to be the highest scoring player on the slate.
Yeah, I have to go Westbrook too. And it's actually incredibly close for the DFS perspective, where these guys to me project as basically the exact same value, a little bit different price point on DraftKings. So from that perspective, I think I'm going to have to be, or try to be, as agnostic as possible with these two guys today, because this is a slate where I think you need to get exposure to really all the stars today, even though Westbrook is going to be certainly the highest upside one. But that's the thing with Westbrook, is to me, he's breaking everything that I have learned to do over the last few years, and how to look at how to, make a median projection and all of that, where I have to increase Russell Westbrook's rebound rate every day. That's now to 25%. I have to increase his assist rate to 20% just to get him to look sort of where he needs to actually hit the outcomes he's hitting every night. And that does mean he's an outlier, but that means he's an outlier every day. And that's something that I think is very noteworthy. Whereas Luka, we've seen play down in competition before. I think the ceiling for Luka is scary to avoid. I certainly wouldn't be, as some of the people in the chat have wanted before, where you want to go 100% Westbrook. I don't think that's the move. I think you need to get some Luka in there, because Luka can put up his own 80 or 90 fantasy points today. But Westbrook is a man possessed who's getting there without even scoring a lot. He's getting there through rebounds and assists, through actually adding value to the team. It's hard for me to really have any dislike for Westbrook here. And I think just everybody else has to adapt for the fact that he's just clearly been the best player of the last month and a half, 2 months.
Why not,
This is your show. You're really thriving in the sunlight today.
It's his tagline. Why not? Trae Young and Steph Curry are 2-point guards, likely to be less popular than Russell Westbrook tonight, but both have big upsides of their own versus the Pacers and Thunder, respectively. Who wins in this one-on-one, Trae or Steph, Spags?
So I think for me, this has to be Steph, just because the upside is really big there. We've talked before in games with Kelly Oubre off the floor, as well as James Wiseman off the floor. 37% usage rate for Steph Curry, actually a little bit above that. This is something in assists, but it's just a gigantic ceiling for him in a spot that tonight should be pretty winnable in a variety of ways, going against Oklahoma City, a team that we know doesn't have great defense, does also play pretty fast. So Steph, I think is a really strong play today. The thing for me, though, and this is kind of ties back to the last point about Luka and Westbrook, is that both guys, though, Trae Young, I think, looks pretty good today in his situation against Indiana, as a team that is also playing fast and playing poorly. And maybe you somehow don't get Brogdon in there today too, for some of his quality defense. But even then, if Brogdon's in, it doesn't matter. It's still a team that as team defenses is not that good right now. So really, these guys are both very strong plays. There are an unbelievable amount of very good point guard plays on today's slate.
Yeah, totally agree. Deep slate, particularly paying up. But I think the thing, if you want to put it in context of the slate, if this was different and we didn't have value, we would be saying, okay, we got Russ, you got Luka. You're not going to be able to probably get Steph in some of these lineups if you've already got one. But there's so much value. We've already talked about it with Martin and with 80 Pistons. So you're able to do that. So I think that the obviously, when you're looking at the price difference, that becomes less and less of an issue. And although Trae Young's in a good spot, you mentioned a 240 total. If I can get Steph, I would want Steph. And I think you're going to be able to comfortably do that as more value opens up. It'll become easier and easier. And although the Thunder are as bad as I've seen a basketball team in a long time, sorry, Kayla, it's really bad. Steph could easily be watching from the sidelines, but he could also have 10 threes in the first half. That's not even hyperbole. He could have a slate-breaking performance against this lifeless team. So even though they're 14.5-point favorites, it's hard not to say Steph in this situation.
Domantas Sabonis could be sneaky tonight versus the Hawks after he disappointed at a lofty price point last time out. Pascal Siakam is cheaper on NBA DFS sites, but has an even better matchup versus the Wizards. Wizards.
The public urinators, yes, of one of our favorite basketball teams.
Oh my gosh. Who wins this big man one-on-one? Sabonis or Spicy P, Ben?
I mean, I always prefer the Bullets, but if they were the Wizards, that would rank above certainly the Wizards and probably the Bullets. I'm going to go with Siakam. I think this is a situation. We've talked about the other side of this game with the Wizards. The Raptors could use the game too, for sure. And Van Vliet and Siakam are going to have to carry the load here. And I think they will. The Wizards defense at times it's looked better, but it's still not a team that I worry about. They're certainly going to be playing fast up and down. And we've talked about Sabonis. We want to get clarification on exactly who's going to be in there for the Pacers, but there's a lot of scenarios where you're just paying an extremely lofty tag for him. You're not getting a ton of ceiling outcomes. So I think with that, this is where I would look to save. I'll go with Siakam.
Actually, I'm in strong agreement here. I think Siakam right now, assuming that Brogdon does make it in, is the better play. And I think even if Brogdon's out on a median projection basis, I think Siakam's a better play because he's a value. He's going to fit a lot better with lineup instructions. There's probably a pathway for you to get to a Russ, Siakam, and one other stud, if not a full price stud, a guy in his same price range or Siakam's same price range. So to me, I think that's a lineup construction that looks better. The boom bust tool also looking very favorably upon Siakam as well, going to be in the optimal lineup about 25% of the time, a little bit under that. So in this spot for me, Sabonis Sabonis, I think, becomes a more appealing tournament option. If you do get Brogdon out, I think you can pay that price tag and move away from a good portion of the field who are going to be on Siakam. But right now, I think Siakam has to be the better play just because he's cheaper and he's probably got comparable upside.
Jordan, that is the funniest thing you've ever said. Oh my gosh, I'm crying. If you didn't see it in the chat, if you got spicy pee while you're whizzing, you could be in trouble.
As a doctor,
brings some
I can
great chat
confirm
comedy
that
to the
for sure.
mix.
Oh my gosh. Also, we should note that Eric in the chat hashtagged Eric. What did he say? It's too far away. Shoot. Team Eric. He hashtagged himself Team Eric. Eric.
He's been doing that bit for a while. To his credit, he and EMAC do that a lot, where they're both Erics, so they give them each other love. And I agree. Like, I'm sure Kayla, I would hope you support all their Kaylas. Ben supporting other Bens. I support all Chris's out there, except when they're dicks in the chat, which sometimes happens, and I just end up sad and dying a little bit inside. But you got to support people with your name. I think that's all we have as a commonality.
Yes. All right. We'll give it to him. Also, Ben, we told you before the show about Eric's eyebrows. Anything you'd like to say about that today, since we're not going to let this go?
Yeah, I'm a little hurt. We did the golf show yesterday. He didn't make one mention of that. So, I thought him sliding into the Wednesday show that took our relationship to a new level, but I guess not. I'll have to see what's going on with him. We also got a super chat. Mark Pearson, appreciate that. Had a big night on No House Advantage. Took down the 5K tournament last night. Good job. Keep it going. That's one of the many, many reasons you should use our content over there. So we like to see that, of course.
Of course we do. Let's head over to the Dr. Ben Rasa prop bet of the day. I need to know how many weed gummy Spags ate before writing this. It's now time for the Dr. Ben Rasa prop bet of the day, with Dr. Ben now at 15-5 after the horse came through that you bet on in the Kentucky Oaks last time out. Yes. How did that horse and the rest of the ponies turn out for you last weekend? So, I don't know. I'm going to butcher the name.
Malathat. She looked great. She was fantastic. Got the week started great. Kentucky Derby was not good. Medina Spirit was a horse I was never coming up with. I could go into a long tangent of why that happened, because Rock Your World got bumped at the start, but it doesn't matter. But it was fun. It was great to pick a winner there, around 2.5 to 1 if you bet that horse. So that was a good one for us to stack up on the show.
Here we go. You've now proven yourself to be equally adept at prognosticating animals sports betting as you are with humans, Dr. Ben, a truly impressive feat. Though it remains a disappointment to us all that you continue to cowardly refuse Spags' request to make bets on the outcome of the games and Air Bud movies. How could a professional sports team not be able to game plan around a literal dog's strengths and weaknesses? You tell me. But that's a tale, LOL, for another time. Ben, what is the Dr. Ben Rasa prop bet of the day?
Yeah, I'm just taking it all in. Hold on. I got to catch up here. There's going to be a delay. Yeah, so we're going to try to keep it going. And I've talked about this before. Obviously, it's a lot more fun to take a Steph Curry prop or a Westbrook prop. And sometimes you find some value and you can do that. But that's not always the case. Tonight, I looked, and there's some value out there. But my favorite prop is actually a rebounding prop in the Atlanta Hawks game for John Collins. And it's a simple fact. I've seen Indiana play a lot lately, and they are as bad as I have seen on the boards in a while. They're getting absolutely crushed in the paint every single night. They're dead last in rebounding rate in the league. Atlanta's fantastic. They're top 5. A lot of that is due to Capella. There's no doubt about it. But John Collins is another guy that certainly is going to be busy on the inside. And they played last night, but it was a 32-point beatdown of the Suns. He barely played. He played 23 minutes. The game before, he only played 19 minutes, but he didn't close because Gallinari was absolutely on fire. You go back before that, 31 minutes against Chicago, upper 20s. I think that's what we see tonight. And you're looking at 6.5 rebounds. It's slightly juiced to the over. It was like minus 139 when I hit it this morning, but I've seen upwards of minus 155. This is going to continue to move up. And 6.5 rebounds for this guy is just not a lot. So a game with a 240 total with that interior defense for the Pacers, which is non-existent, Capella will get his dozen or so, but there's going to be plenty for Collins, plenty for the other Hawks. And I think this is a pretty easy prop tonight.
Yeah, I would ride with that one too. I think this spot, my projections that I make for myself account for the difference between a team's propensity to giving up rebounds versus league average. And it does seem like the Pacers do have one of those worst marks in the league. So I'm pretty comfortable with this number here. I have Collins today at 8.1 rebounds. That's obviously a median projection. And I think that's still pretty safely over the number here. So inefficient market, the rebounds. I know Ben also targets a 3-point props. And that is something we talk about a lot with OddsShopper, that is keeping your eye on these things, making sure you're in the loop on them, and knowing too that Indiana's playing faster. This line probably not the most efficient either, probably reflects a little bit more the season-long look on Indiana compared to how they are playing right now, which is very poorly. I would say that in this spot, it's a pretty good bet by Dr. Ben. And I have to give Ben all the credit in the world. 75% hit rate on these bets so far now officially with 15-5. And that's, you're doing the thing that we always talk about here. It's impossible to actually be profitable in betting. And you're doing it with more than just, juice and different promotions that people are using for profitability other places.
Yeah, I mean, I think the couple things that are working in my favor. First one is just I'm in a good groove, hit some good bounces. But the other thing is just being able to go on OddsShopper and pick my spots. I'm not forced to take one prop where sometimes there's just no value on either side. I think that's one of the most important, as I drop that, most important things with betting is that sometimes neither side, whether it's a team or a prop, has the value. So the great thing about OddsShopper, I'm able to go in and eliminate props. Say, I don't like this, I don't like this. And then you hone in on a couple here and there. I think that's how you have to do it. Be very selective, pick your spots, and you can absolutely be profitable.
The man also knows his horses, by the way.
Malathat. That's right. Your girl. But yeah, we'll see. Preakness Stakes next week. We will be talking about it on the show. Obviously, Medina Spirit will be there. All the other rejects who couldn't get into the Derby will probably join him. It's a pretty bad race, but if you want to party, Spags was talking about this the last time, Pimlico. So of all of the Triple Crown races, the second one, which is the Preakness, is straight lawless. Like most people that go, they don't even see a horse the whole time. You're in the infield. It's dangerously insane. Great party spot.
Sounds like a good time.
You would enjoy it. Pimlico is...
I'm sure I would.
Well, it's a shithole, but it doesn't matter. It's still a good time. It's such a bad
What
track.
are you trying to say about me then?
No, I'm just saying it's of all the tracks.
You would love it. It's terrible.
It's so it's just a straight party. Like I said, they don't even need to run the race. That I know I'm getting on a tangent, but it's just such a bad track. But you know what? It's still a very good time.
We also just got one injury item, and I just feel like this is probably worth pointing out, giving people an alert, because we're trying to do the betting thing. Kyle Lowry rolled out, so if you got any places you can place some Fred VanVleet or Pascal Siakam props, now would be a good time to do so, because Kyle Lowry resting today on Thursday.
Thanks for that, Spags.
Hey, I want people to make money, because Ben's here making all the money, rubbing it in their faces like, oh, look, I win 75% of the time, do. And then, people out there may not realize that this is the way they can catch up to Dr. Ben is betting props the second you hear about the news.
No, that's great that you're helping them. I appreciate that.
So I care about helping. That's what I'm always here for.
Let's head on into No House Advantage. Here are some of No House Advantage's props of the day for key players. So guys, do you like the over or under on them, and how many points would you assign? We've got Karis LeVert over under 3.5 assists. Spags.
So this is one that currently on the Awesemo projections for No House Advantage seems like one of the best overs to be taking. I think it has, let me just make sure I'm accurate on the number, a 90% chance of hitting the over. And this is something that No House Advantage, I know we got the super chat earlier in the show where the guy actually replied, Ben, was apparently mad that you didn't throw in the line about him wanting to date Kayla. So I don't know how you left that out. My gosh.
Sorry, bro. But I do what
awesome,
I can.
I'll say on Kayla's behalf here as her surrogate father on the show, watching out for any of these would-be suitors in the YouTube chat. Going to take a lot more than a $10 super chat for that dowry, my friend. So feel free. So come back to the table with the rest of that 5K from No House Advantage. But these props every day on there, if you are paying attention, you have a good probability to win. And Karis LeVert, even if you do get Malcolm Brogdon in, is going to project better from the 3.5 assists. Last game had a down game against Sacramento. I don't expect that to happen again today. The over Karis LeVert, one of the best bets on the board.
No doubt about it. You look at it, you go to OddsShopper. Right now, Karis LeVert is sitting over under 4.5 assists, and it's juice to the over. So you're stealing a full assist and you're stealing juice. That's really all you need to say. This is one of the many ones on No House Advantage that you're probably going to want to put more towards the top. If not, and it definitely should be on your card tonight.
Next, we've got Kevin Huerter over under 22.5 points plus rebounds plus assist. Ben.
Yeah, so this is another one. Again, I think one of the beauties of this is a lot of people are not going to be thinking about Kevin Huerter's points, rebounds, and assists or any of these props. And clearly what we have projected is it's leaning big time under, almost by 7 in terms of the points, rebounds, assists. We have him projected, around 15, and this line's 22.5. So that's something that you immediately sticks out. It's readily identified. And this is one, I'll be honest, I never would have even noticed. That was not a guy I was looking at tonight, not paying attention. And that's the beauty of this. The projections do a lot of the work for you. Now, this is one, you do your due diligence, you confirm it, looks like everything checks out, and it's one of your strongest props of the day.
Yeah, Ben said it all there. I mean, this is something that we talk about in the shows. I know Eric has recently been putting a lot of the Kevin Huerter props in No House Advantage because they're just not adjusting the line to reflect the fact that we do have Trae Young back. You have Bogdan Bogdanovic back. I think they might have adjusted the line when those guys were out and then just have said, hey, let's keep it rolling forward. And I get that. I appreciate that about No House Advantage, that they're a lot like us as common working men, where they just want you to be like, not want to do the least amount of effort possible. And that's what they're doing with the Kevin Huerter props every day, just letting it roll forward, giving you guys a chance to make some money on it. So this one, to me, it looks like it has a 98% chance of hitting the under from Awesemo. Probably your 10-pointer on No House Advantage today.
And last but not least, we've got Garrett Temple over under 13.5 points plus assists plus rebounds. Spags.
This is another free square one where, again, this is the equivalent of a 3K minimum guy on DraftKings that you're like, oh, this guy's going to get 30 minutes. And also he projects for over a fantasy point per minute. You play that guy on No House Advantage. It's not a DFS site, but it does have the same principles of competing against people trying to win GPPs. And the under on Garrett Temple, this 13.5 line here for his points plus rebounds plus assists. It's a line that was made with Zach LaVine not likely to play or not playing the last few games. As a result, is a 94% chance of getting under today. Probably a little bit less good than the Huerter prop, but this one, if you put that interchangeably with the Huerter prop, those are your 10 and 9 pointers on No House Advantage today.
Nothing else to say. Again, you're talking about fine edges. It's not, do you want this on your card? It's, do you want to make it your 10 or 9? It's going to be towards the top. When you see percentages this high, if nothing breaks injury news wise, and this is confirmed, all systems go. It's one of the best values on the board.
All right. And don't forget to play on No House Advantage, our sponsor, who is taking a different spin on daily fantasy sports by offering player prop contests across the NBA, MLB, NFL, and PGA for cash prizes. This exclusively peer-to-peer fantasy sports platform levels the playing field and makes it easier for you to win real cash compared with your traditional DFS sites. The best part is you can join for free today. Just download the No House Advantage app and use promo code Awesemo to receive a deposit bonus of up to $20 for new signups. Beat your friends, not the house. Win big with player props today. It's time for good dog, bad dog. I never know if we have the sound or not. Spags, Barker up.
Wow.
Some of the guys in chat would pay money to get that kind of treatment.
Yeah, my God.
In real life, there's no such thing as a bad dog. And betting in DFS, there are a lot of underdogs who may have no chance in their game. So who's a good dog to target tonight? I can't even read it. And who's a bad one? Spags. Good dog. Go.
My good dog for the day is going to be the Dallas Mavericks at home. I do think they stay competitive in this one. This is a high profile spot for both teams. I think Brooklyn is going to bring their A game tonight like they did this week against Milwaukee. And I think Dallas on their end is going to do their part as well. To me, very live to win yesterday. I was so happy that the Hawks blew out Phoenix. Felt really good about that one. And I feel this one today. I think Dallas also wins this one outright. So to me, as a money line bet, I would take it today.
I'm going to have to confirm it. That was the team that I targeted as well. The Nets, we still really haven't seen them at full strength. We'll see what they're made of in the playoffs, but Dallas needs this game. They are fighting to get out of the potential play-in games. And although Porzingis is in there, when Luka is on the court, they have a shot. They're at home. 4 points plus 155. I like both of those. I think they're definitely a live dog tonight.
Dr. Rasa, hit us with your bad dog.
That's the Thunder. I have no interest, even though you're getting a ton of points. I have no idea how you could back a team that is giving up like 90 points in halves at points. They're just lifeless. They have no interest. Golden State's not going to be messing around. They're going to crush them. It's the type of game, they're going to be up double digits. It could land on 13. It could land on 16. There's absolutely no value in trying to take the Thunder tonight.
Thunder are a good pick and one that was in my running too, but I'll just go with Detroit. I think Detroit for DFS, you're going to have a team that's going to have some upside just because that's how DFS works. You can lose a game and still be pretty good. We saw that yesterday with Houston and a lot of those guys getting there besides Kevin Porter Jr. Of course, but for Detroit today, I think you can have these guys getting there and they still lose by 20 easily. I think I would have them projected to lose by over 25 today. So I think it's an easy win for Memphis.
And now for make or break, which player or game currently looks like a make or break spot to you on tonight's Slate, Spags?
I think my make or break is going to be not going 100% Westbrook. And I know it's so controversial these days because it keeps paying off for people making that move. But I do believe in the core principles of DFS that you just need to sort of mitigate your exposures, treat it like a stock market, diversify your assets as much as you can. I'll have 50% Westbrook today and not a penny more, I say. So I will go and try to get some other point guards who hopefully can beat those other Westbrook lineups.
So I think on the other side of that, how you're going to be able to do these things in terms of the superstars is finding the right value. And that's going to come down to the Pistons, particularly amongst other teams. We've talked about, some of these guys that are going to step up and see minutes. I think if you can hone in on the right and avoid the landmines there, it's going to unlock the opportunity to get either Westbrook or Luka or Steph or whoever you want to pay up for, or a combination. So getting the value there is one of the main priorities. I think that could be a potential for a big night for people.
And finally, for fade of the day, is there one game, player, or team that you anticipate you'll have a lot less interest in than the rest of the public? Ben.
So I think it's probably the Bulls game. I look at that. I don't really want to back Charlotte at home, even though I do think they're somewhat of a live dog. We've talked about Levine coming back. I think that makes it very difficult to get to them on a DFS side. And I'm not going to bet the Bulls on the road here. So that's a game I'm just wiping off the slate. I think that the Bulls are a team I really have no interest in making a position against them or for them in the betting market tonight.
For me, it's going to be the Clippers. And I think, as a team, it wouldn't shock me to see them pick up the win against the Lakers, who are still obviously going to be a little shorthanded with no shooter, no LeBron, all that. But I think for DFS, I would not play a single Laker night. Maybe you could sort of squeeze to make an argument for Zubac, but I think people keep playing Paul George and Kawhi, and I get why that does work out in a lineup construction sometimes, because they do have price points that aren't a lot of people at. But I think these guys are really just having production. They haven't been getting enough minutes since the injuries for Kawhi, been less effective too. I just don't want to be there tonight. So I think those guys, I'm hoping, are not in my player pool at all.
All right. That's going to do it for the tip-off today. Fellas, right on time. Nice work. Do you want to plug what you're up to next really quickly?
I mean, I'll be watching all the other shows here, watching the Deeper Dive, watching Live Before Lock, and tomorrow I got my Splash Play podcast coming out. So me and Peter Overs are doing our football thing. So go check that out at Splash Play Pod would be my request.
Love it. Ben?
Yeah, I'll be watching the shows. I'll be gambling on several sports, some that people didn't know existed, including lacrosse. So I've got a good night ahead. We're going to try to cash some of these tickets, and we'll be back tomorrow to talk more NBA. I'm very excited. That's right. We'll be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. The NBA Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock are coming your way next at 5 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you tomorrow.
I'm so excited to get a farm for auctioning you off, Kayla. It's going to be really great.
Wow, you're going into the human trafficking market.
Oh my gosh.
No, it's...
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com Deeper Dive NBA edition, sponsored by Jock Market. I'm Dave Loughran, on Twitter at Lofty_D, LOUGHY_D, joined 5 days a week by Adam Scherer at ShipMyMoney DFS. What's going on, brother?
Not much. Sweating baseball for, I think, maybe the first time this season, which is pretty pathetic.
Well, I hope you get a W here. And are you sweating like a legitimate bink on this?
I mean, not the huge field, but I'm fifth in the 153 max. I think I'm doing well in the $100 single entry with a Brave stack that is only in the fourth inning. So hopefully it comes through.
Yeah, I just meant, are you sweating like an actual win, or are you sweating a top 5 or something?
No. I can win the smaller field stuff.
With baseball, it's crazy too, because one hit, one homer could, or your pitcher getting blown up in one single inning can drop you from first to 5,000. So
yeah, sweating baseball is just brutal. I mean, it's just because you don't. It's kind of fun. If you played a lot of lineups, it's kind of fun because you never really know what you have because somebody can homer and you jump up. But when you're trying to figure out what you need to avoid, it's just brutal because it's I need every team just not to hit because
exactly.
No,
we're here to talk about basketball though, so that's exactly what we're gonna do. So adjusting the run sheet here for this Toronto news. If you ever want to check out our MLB shows, we got plenty of them throughout the day as well. We already had the MLB Live Before Lock show. You can tune into that. Or I'm sorry, the MLB. There was only one MLB Live Before Lock show today, right? Because it was an early lock. The main slate was an early lock. But every day other than that, when you don't have that, you'll have the strategy show in the morning, and then you'll have MLB Live Before Lock, or Deeper Dive, I guess we're calling it, around 3 p.m. Eastern time up until basketball regular season ends. Anyway, we're happy to have you guys here with us. Hit that thumbs up. Just make it the first thing you do. If I could ask one thing of you, when you jump in the digital door here, the virtual door into the YouTube Awesemo space, hit that thumbs up and just make it a habit, right? It takes 6 weeks to create a habit. Do it 6 straight weeks, and then you won't even think about it. It'll be second nature, and I'll thank you for it every day of the week.
I was going back through the show data for the meeting earlier, and I saw the one random day we had 1,100 likes. I was like, oh, that must be the time I asked for them.
It's very possible. Did we really get 1,100? And that was 2 weeks ago?
It was 1080 or something. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Last week in April.
Subscribe to the channel as well. Much appreciated. If you haven't done so yet, what are you waiting for? If you hate it and you never want to see us again, just unsubscribe. You'll be rid of us for good. We'll refund your misery for free. Hit the notification bell as well while you're at it. All right, Adam, 7 games to jump into today. This is a fun slate. And for one of the reasons I liked this slate, this is, of course, before the Kyle Lowry news, was there was so much bad, seemingly chalky value, at least in my opinion. Maybe I end up being wrong, but there was a lot of value out there that just looked like it was pulling ownership because there wasn't anything great else out there. And you want to play the Westbrooks because his price point is stuck at 11K on DraftKings. You want to get to a Doncic against Brooklyn, Kevin Durant in that same matchup against Dallas, and a lot of other Stephen Curry against OKC. There's so many good top tier options that it's going to force a lot of these value plays in, and so many of them were bad. How much does that Toronto news affect this and make it more of a stars and scrubs slate than it might have been earlier in the day?
Well, I still think it was going to be a stars and scrubs slate anyway, but to what you were saying,
a lot of bad scrubs.
Right. Yeah. To what you were saying, especially when you're playing larger field stuff, I think those are some of the most fun tournament days because you can just play random 3K dudes and hope that you get lucky. And it's kind of fun in its own way. But Toronto, does open things up a bit more. When you take Lowry out, you're taking out 36 plus minutes. You're getting a $4,300 Malachi Flynn, most likely starting. Watanabe's out too. So potentially you're getting a $3,100 Bembry playing some minutes. That's always a fun thing to try and get. But it definitely opens up some more stuff. But with all the pay up options tonight, you're going to kind of have to find some value to go to.
You are. And some of it's bad. Some of it's going to open up even more so, I'm assuming. My guess is we will get news because that's just what's been happening. I think the winning lineup, I was watching our strategy show from this morning, Monday through Sunday, 7 days a week, 10 a.m. Eastern time, was 458 or something.
Yeah, it was 457 yesterday.
457. Yeah. I had several lineups in the 360 to 380 range. Some of them did not cash.
Yeah, I think I'd messaged you last night. And I mean, we've talked about it before and joked about it. Your score doesn't matter because everything's relative, but it's still in the $200 3 max, my best lineup scored, I think 379 points and wasn't particularly close to cashing. It was just this is insane.
Yeah, by me saying 360 to 380 doesn't mean that I'm saying I had a good lineup. It was more
Right.
so the point that there was a really high scoring night.
Yeah, it was just a bunch of the really popular plays did really, really well.
Yeah, I think Josh mentioned it today too. If your score is high and everyone else's score is higher, like
You still didn't. Scoring 360 points doesn't mean you made a good lineup. It's not. Oh, I made a really good lineup, but everyone else's was just better. You made a shitty lineup for the slate.
Right, exactly. It looks awesome in a vacuum. Right. Like if you showed someone that doesn't know DFS that well, they'd be like, "Man, that's awesome. How much did you win?" And then
Right.
you have to tell them. Chicago and Charlotte. Let's dive straight into this one. This should be a crawling game here. I know Devontae Graham is ruled out for this one, so good. We're getting some news. This game should be ridiculously slow. Both teams playing at a unreasonably slow pace this season, Adam. Over the last month, you've got Charlotte and Chicago bottom 5 in pace, both of them kind of middle of the road defenses to boot. So when I look at Chicago, of the 14 teams on this slate, they are one of the least appealing teams to me, outside of maybe some Vooch on FanDuel. Zach LaVine's coming back from like a 2-week absence. It just feels like such an absolutely ugly team to target today. Maybe you like something I don't.
No, not really. I think this is a pretty tough spot because you do have Levine coming back. You have Vucevic probable as well after missing their last game. So pricing, came up a little bit on these secondary pieces. You have Levine, who we don't really know how many minutes he's going to play. Without hearing anything, I assume you're looking at like 33 or 34, but could be limited after being out for a while. Vooch has been playing more minutes now, but he of course loses usage when he's playing with Levine. So I think it's a really, really difficult team to get to. Like even guys like Patrick Williams, when you take Levine out and when if you take out Vooch, guys like Patrick Williams get a little bit more usage, play a little bit, produce a little bit more, but his price tag came up a little bit, and you're not even expecting him really to get touches here. So really, really tough, I think, to get anything from Chicago.
On the Charlotte side, that was easy. And honestly, there's plenty of games, plenty of spots that we're going to be spending a lot of time on today. Chicago just simply isn't one of them. Charlotte's not in a spot where they're getting a big pace up matchup. They're not facing the worst defense in the league. Granted, Chicago, not exactly an imposing defense either, but they will be without Bridges again. Gordon Hayward remains out for the foreseeable future. Devontae Graham was just ruled out. Jordan, if you want to fix that one in the run sheet, I didn't have time to do so. And Cody Martin's out as well. So you get PJ Washington back, but that really affects the front court more than everything else. Terry Rozier is $6,200 on FanDuel. LaMelo Ball's prices come up. But there are pieces here that are going to be used, and people are going to go back to someone like Caleb Martin today after that last game, played 33 and a half minutes, averaged almost a fantasy point per minute in that game, had usage up north of 20%. It's a matter of how much you think PJ Washington affects guys like him today as well.
I think Charlotte's really interesting because we could see the rotation go a couple of different ways. With Washington coming back, that could only affect the center position. Like you could just have Cody Zeller not play at all. You have Biyombo back up Washington. And then, there's a bunch of minutes available for these wings. Like if you're running some small ball lineups where like you have Ball, Rozier, Monk, Bridges or McDaniels and then Washington or something like that, then there's a lot of minutes available for those guards. But if, let's say, Cody Zeller plays 14 minutes and Biyombo plays 18 minutes, and so Washington's only playing like 16 at the 5, and he's playing his other 18 at the 4, that's taking minutes away from guys, potentially Wanamaker, potentially Martin, potentially McDaniels, probably kind of a hot hand situation. So my point being, I think there's just a lot of volatility in the minutes for the non-LaMelo Ball, non-Terry Rozier, non-PJ Washington guys on the Hornets. So there is the potential for value, but they're also risky. And when you get situations like that, I think paying attention to ownership becomes really important. Don't be afraid to kind of go away from the field and do something different. I think that, assuming McDaniels starts, assuming Caleb Martin starts, they're relatively safe. I would expect you're getting 30 plus minutes from those guys again under most scenarios. Caleb Martin still particularly inexpensive at 3,900 on DraftKings. Still, I think a good value, and he's getting some ownership deservedly so. You and I were talking about it a little bit before the show, though, with Brad Wanamaker, who played 30 minutes last game. He could play 30 minutes again, and he is still cheap. He's someone that I was a little bit overweight on last game, and it worked out well. But there's no guarantee he gets those minutes again. Malik Monk only played 19 minutes. If he's playing well, you could very easily see Malik Monk play 26 minutes, Wanamaker play like 20. And I think people, while Monk was pretty popular last slate, we only have him projected for like 3% ownership today. So he's the kind of guy where I think on a slate that is kind of lacking strong upside value, someone like Monk that's not getting ownership and has a very wide range of outcomes becomes a kind of interesting tournament option.
I'm with you. I think so as well. It's not a 1-for-1 trade-off with Wanamaker because the price points are different, like, a decent amount different. But I agree with you 100%. Like you said, we discussed it before the show. And another thing with Wanamaker is, if this was a scenario where Rozier and LaMelo Ball were coming off the court and back on the court at around the same time, and Wanamaker was getting these backup minutes and leading the reserves, that'd be one thing. But 25 of his 30 minutes came with Rozier on the floor. Half of his minutes came with LaMelo on the floor. So even if he gets those minutes, even if the unpredictable Borrego ends up giving him those minutes and Monk only gets 19 or 20 again, you still have to depend on Wanamaker to do something with those minutes, playing alongside guys that are going to get far more touches and usage than he is any given night.
Right, which is a really good point too, because even if, like, let's say Wanamaker plays 26, 28 minutes, let's say Monk, take Monk out of this, say Monk has a bad game. But even just talking about Wanamaker specifically, a lot of times if he gets 26 or 28 minutes, he's going to give you like 20, 22 fantasy points, which is useful at 3,400, but I would bet it's not the best scoring value play on the slate. So he's someone who's not super likely to burn you if you don't have him. And I'm not saying not to play Wanamaker. Like, he certainly fits into some lineups. He's not getting tons of ownership. We have him at like 14%. It's just that, he does, I think, have a wide range of outcomes. And to what you were saying, he shot 5 for 8 last game. So you're not expecting that kind of efficiency going forward either.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at I'm at on this one as well. Let's dive a little bit more into guys like Rozier and LaMelo. LaMelo was justifiably chalk last game out. He was very, very cheap, and his price has since come up. Terry Rozier on FanDuel, though, sitting at 6,200. So with his current ownership, he's pulling the second most projected ownership of any player on this slate on FanDuel. And if you want to check our ownership projections out today, yes, they are totally free for the main slate at awesemo.com. You don't have to do anything but go check them out. MLB ownership rankings and NHL ownership projections for the main slate are free as well, along with MMA fighter projections. But that Rozier ownership, given the price point, very cheap, is very, very high.
Yeah, and I think it should be. I actually don't really know why Rozier and Ball are projected for as low ownership on DraftKings as they are, unless it just kind of ends up being a roster construction thing. But
Rozier's shooting guard eligibility too on FanDuel is pretty massive.
Yeah, for sure. And he played 39 minutes last game. I don't think Washington coming back really has a negative impact there. I think you get another 36 to 38 minutes or so. And if you look, assuming that Ball and Rozier's minutes are going to be staggered, you would assume, if Ball's playing 30 to 32 minutes, you're assuming that like 40 to 45% of Rozier's minutes come without Ball on the floor and the rest are alongside him. If you go and look at his rates this year, it basically averages out to, you're expecting a 25% usage rate for Rozier, about a 21% assist percentage, a little over a fantasy point per minute. For someone playing 36 to 38 minutes at 6,200, that's great. Even at 7,600 on DraftKings, I think it's fine.
Anybody else you want to hit on for Charlotte here?
LaMelo Ball, I think, still fine. Like, he only played 30 and a half minutes last game. You could tell by the rotations, they seem to kind of want to keep him in that range. He played some shorter stints, but there's no, it's probably not that long until they're like, okay, go play 32, go play 33. Like, he was playing 38 minutes at times earlier this year. So the fact that he's, played 30 minutes in a couple games makes me think that it's not going to be long before you get a few more minutes. Yeah, the price tag came up a little bit, but we know how high the ceiling is for someone like LaMelo. So I kind of like that the salary came up because it's just moving his ownership down a little bit.
Let's talk about Brooklyn and Dallas then. The Brooklyn Nets heading to Dallas. It's unlikely that Brooklyn wins the conference at this point. I think you and I discussed that the Sixers have a cake schedule, and they're a couple games up. They own the tiebreaker over Brooklyn, but they're only hanging on to the second spot in the East by one game. They've got Dallas today, and then Denver next time out. I mentioned that because you would think they'd still want to hold on to that 2 seed. And given the minutes that we've seen Kevin Durant play under Steve Nash recently, says a lot. He was on that minutes restriction when he returned, played 28 minutes. Then he played 33, 36, and now 40 in back-to-back games, back-to-back losses, as a matter of fact, against the Milwaukee Bucks. So starting with with Kevin Durant, which is where I think we have to start, Adam, as 3.5-point favorites, 234.5 point total against the Mavs. Where do you lean towards him at 9,900, given the insane usage and per minute production, 1.51 with Durant with Harden off the floor this year, and the fact that he's legitimately played 40 minutes in regulation in back-to-back games?
Yeah, I mean, I think he has to be considered one of the top options on the slate. The only negative thing to say here is Dallas is one of the slowest teams in the league, but you still have almost 120-point implied total for Brooklyn. So that's still, really high. Durant's playing huge minutes, like you said. You saw in the game against Milwaukee, Brooklyn basically ran a 7.5-man rotation. Outside of the main 7 guys, Nick Claxton played like 4 minutes in the first half. Mike James played 4 minutes. So, I mean, you can kind of count that as like one person, I guess, and call it an 8-man rotation. You saw similar in the second half with Bruce Brown and Mike James. Claxton didn't get on the floor. So you pretty much just saw like almost all the minutes go to 7 guys for Brooklyn, and Durant played another 40. So, I think expecting 37, 38 minutes at least is very reasonable for Durant. 1.5 fantasy points per minute without Harden and with Irving this year, like you said, 32% usage rate, 27% assist percentage. It all looks great. The only thing that'll be tough is, you do have Russell Westbrook on the slate. You do have Curry on the slate, but I think Durant, clearly stands out as one of those top options, because you have to keep in mind, Kevin Durant isn't like a 9K player that's priced up to 9,900 because he's been playing well. He's like a 10-5, 11K player that was priced at 9K because he was hurt, and now he's making his way back up. But as far as the talent goes, he will be more expensive in a week and a half.
There's no doubt about that, especially given the minutes that he's been seeing. Thomas Brusso says, just wanted to thank you guys. I won the $4 75K 20 max and the 30K 20 max. Watch almost every day. Congratulations, man.
Congrats.
That is awesome. I love to see that. Winning 20 maxes and single entries out here. It's good stuff. Outside of Durant, it starts to get a little bit dicey, right? He's clearly underpriced given what we've seen in terms of per minute production and minutes played recently. Coming down the home stretch of the season, he's back to full strength. You get past him and you've got a little bit of ownership going to Kyrie Irving. We even have like 6% going to Blake Griffin, but that's pretty negligible. Joe Harris on FanDuel is $4,400. I think that's at least worth a quick conversation given how cheap he is, and that maybe value at small forward isn't all that great today. But mostly it's Kevin Durant on DraftKings as the top option from this team. Would you agree?
Yeah, that's how I see it too. I mean, Kyrie Irving clearly is capable of having a big game, but this game shouldn't be as appealing or as high scoring as that game against Milwaukee was. And you also just have a different slate. Like the other day, I thought Irving was a pretty good tournament play because you had a ton of value you could go to. You had a game that was going to be really, really high scoring, and you had Irving at low ownership. Today, you don't have nearly as much quality value to go to. The game's less likely to just turn into a full-blown shootout than the Milwaukee game was. And you have him competing with Westbrook and Curry, at the guard position, not to mention Durant on his own team and at that price point. So I think it becomes a little bit more difficult to get to Kyrie. Harris's salary is very affordable on FanDuel at $4,400. He's someone that I think does benefit if Brooklyn continues to run this tightened rotation, because, you've kind of seen his playing time all over the place this season. Some games he plays 34, some games he plays 28. He played 33.5 last game. I think that, if they continue running this rotation, you're getting 32, 33 minutes from Harris. A $4,400 price tag isn't too bad.
The Dallas Mavericks have Luka Doncic today, as they do every day, without Kristaps Porzingis. He's kind of an interesting case study tonight because the whole what's the word I'm looking for? The sentiment surrounding some of these top tier players recently, right? The hype around them has not been surrounding Luka. Adam, here's what I mean. You've got Russell Westbrook averaging a triple-double every night, right? You've got Stephen Curry, who over the last month is averaging 37 points per game. Insane numbers from these guys. Kevin Durant's come back into the mix, playing big minutes. So Luka kind of falls to the back burner. You forget about him a little bit. But what if I told you over his last 10 starts, he was still averaging 1.63 DraftKings points per game, and facing a Nets team that's one of the 11th fastest paced teams, ranks 24 in defensive rating, huge pace-up spot for Dallas. And while Luka hasn't exactly been better without Porzingis this season, he's still a 1.55 DraftKings point per minute guy with 36% usage. I could go across all the numbers. Like, he hasn't been getting the same attention as Westbrook and Curry and such, but he's actually been crushing lately with some really big games. And now he's got the Nets today in a game with a 3.5 point spread.
Yeah, I mean, he's been really good. And you've kind of seen this similar dynamic play out all season long. The names just kind of change, depending on the slate.
Yep.
But you've very consistently seen, 2 or 3 or 3 or 4, like, really, really good plays all right around the 11K. And it kind of just comes down to ownership every single time. Like right now, we have Westbrook and Curry projected around 30%. We have Luka at 20%. I think the gap should be bigger there. I also think Westbrook's ownership ends up being higher than that because he kind of is just breaking everything right now. Like he's probably going to be closer to 50%, which makes.
What would you price him at on DraftKings if you were pricing 12-1, 12-2,
12-5?
Yeah,
probably like 12-1, 12-2, because you have to factor in, like, if you're keeping Luka and Curry at 11, you should probably have Westbrook at like 12 because like they have similar ceilings. I think the biggest difference is just that Westbrook doesn't fail ever. He fails like once every 15 games.
Right.
So, we talk a lot about ceilings and all that, but floors matter too. And the fact that, Westbrook is giving you 55 or 60 every single game is really why I think he needs to be more expensive than he is. But as far as, Luka goes, Westbrook should be
Westbrook's
higher.
minutes too. Sorry. When you're playing 38 to 40 every single night.
Yeah, when you're playing 38 to 40, you're averaging 13 rebounds and 15 assists or whatever the hell he's doing. Like, it's so hard to fail. And you're playing on a team that plays the first or second fastest pace in the league, depending on what time period you're looking at. But for Luka, it's still, that ceiling is there. He's his floor is lower. I mean, you go back and look at his last 5 games, he's gotten 60 once, he got 80. The ceiling's there, but he's got a couple games, 46, 48, 50. Not to say that that's indicative of what happens tonight. It just illustrates the point of he's the same price as Westbrook, and they're not really that similar in terms of like floor. But Luka can still beat him. So if you get a bigger ownership discount there by the time lock rolls around, I think it is a good spot for Doncic. It's a nice pace up spot. We know that he contributes in every category. It's just really, really tough to get him ahead of Westbrook, I think.
You're right. If you run it back to his last 10 though, 64, 61, 62, 58, a 61, an 81 in there, a 51. So he's got a few 40s mixed in, but also, like 5 of his last 10 have been 60 plus.
Yeah.
He's capable.
My only point there is like, so he has 3 games under 50 points.
I know Westbrook has 1.
Right. Like how far do you have to go back to find Westbrook's 3rd game?
I promise you, I'm not disagreeing with you. I at all. Westbrook's been otherworldly. Really all it comes down to is the fact that Westbrook is criminally underpriced at $11,000.
Right. Yeah. And it's really, I'm just trying to like reiterate my point. Like if ownership actually ends up being 30% Westbrook, 20% Luka, the people that played Luka are insane. But I think that Westbrook probably ends up like, especially in higher stakes or smaller field stuff, he's going to be like 60% owned again.
What if it's like 55% Westbrook and 15% Luka?
So that's where it gets to like, it's not even, you have to play Luka over Westbrook, that ownership, because Westbrook's still great. But that's where I think it starts to become more interesting. Like if Luka beats Westbrook, I think he beats him more than 1 in 3.5 times. I don't think he beats him more than like, I don't think he's beating him 45, 46% of the time, but I think Luka probably wins like 38, 40% of the time. So if you're getting like 55 to 15, it starts to at least be a spot where it's interesting to look at. And it's probably a positive pivot if that's where you wanted to take a contrarian stand.
Street Preacher said, bro, y'all at Awesemo need to stop downplaying Russ and DFS. I don't know what show you're watching. I don't know what show. Saying that Luka has been better than people are, labeling him as recently doesn't mean Westbrook has been. We just said Westbrook should. I'm pretty sure the words just left my mouth that he's criminally underpriced. And Adam said that if Luka's 20% and Westbrook's 30%, you're crazy to play Luka. If that's a downplay, I don't know what you want me to do. I mean, I can't go there. But I'll move on. What are you doing with Tim Hardaway Jr. today? I see a lot of talk about him in chat right now. He's had a few really solid games recently. The minutes are up and the shot volume is up, which is the biggest thing because you're shit out of luck if you think Tim's going to get you there by way of peripherals.
Yeah, jumped in the starting lineup in place with Porzingis and Maxey both out last game. They're both out again today. So I'm assuming you get the start for Hardaway. He played 33 minutes, would have played 34, 35 had that game been competitive to the end. So like you said, he's fine. He should benefit from the pace of this game just because Dallas gets more possessions, but you need those threes to go in. I mean, I had him in one of my better lineups the other day when he had 49 DraftKings points at like 1% owned. And it was literally, I think he hit like 10 threes or something and had 49 fantasy points. So you're not getting much of anything else. You need him to shoot really well. So he's a very low floor guy, even with those minutes, but he does average around 0.9 DraftKings points per minute. And if you're getting 33, 34 minutes in a pace up spot, there's a, good chance he's giving you 29, 30 points at 5,200, which is perfectly fine with, clearly the upside for more.
Keys to the City with the super chat. Thanks, brother. No comment, just the super chat. Much appreciated. A question came up in chat that I actually meant to talk about and forgot. He said, is it feasible, and I'm paraphrasing here, to play Luka and Westbrook in the same lineup? In all seriousness, depending if we get some more news, yeah, it actually is, Adam. If there's two guys at 3K that you end up being able to plug in, and then you're getting 5,500 per player remaining. Yes, it's doable. I'm not saying it's optimal or even advised, but you probably will be able to do it.
Yeah, it's doable. I mean, if you put them in, you still have $4,683 left over. So it's not even like you're going to be scraping the bottom of the barrel necessarily. Like you find one guy at, you play one Brad Wanamaker or Caleb Martin or whatever, Malachi Flynn, you'll definitely be able to make that work.
Well, there's another one too, and I'd really like to avoid talking about him, but we can't do that. Willie Cauley-Stein, he's $3,000. If he gets another start, Porzingis, Maxi Kleber out. He just hasn't been good, man. And that's kind of the issue here. At minimum salary, is there any value to that?
I think so. I'm curious to see who starts here because we had seen Dwight Powell getting starts. Then Cauley-Stein started last game, but Powell started the second half. Powell ended up playing 28 and a half minutes. Cauley-Stein only played 18. I don't think it matters a ton who starts because we've seen in other games, you've seen Powell play 20 minutes and Cauley-Stein plays 26 off the bench. I think it's really just going to matter who's playing better and Carlisle will give them the minutes. So with Powell at 3,500, with Cauley-Stein at 3K, I think either one are at least somewhat interesting in tournaments because they are cheap. They are centers. They are in a fast-paced game. And we know that they can put up numbers, even though they have both been somewhat underwhelming from a fantasy standpoint this year. So I'll take shots on both. Obviously not in the same lineup, but I also don't feel super confident in either one because it's Rick Carlisle and who knows what he's going to do.
Okay. Anyone else?
I will say, I think this is a game where it would be very difficult for Boban to steal minutes from them, which is good.
Yeah. Oh, I would think so too.
Yeah.
And I do think like going up against DeAndre Jordan, whoever Nash decides to put in the front court, you might get some easy opportunities for Cauley-Stein, but it's still such a sketchy spot. If he was even $3,800 or $3,700, I wouldn't have even brought his name up. That's how much he has to be minimum salary.
I mean, my thing is, if you told me Cauley-Stein was going to play 28 minutes, I would just put him in like every lineup. But even if he starts, the range is like 18 to 28 minutes. If he comes off the bench, the range is 18 to 28 minutes.
I put it in a deep dive today that you're basically praying that he gives you 25 to 27 minutes and averages somewhere around the fantasy point per minute. Like that's what you're hoping for. You want. And normally you could be like, oh, 20 is fine. But just given the way how high scoring things have been lately, I don't know if 19 is going to get you there, Washington and Toronto. All right, let's get down and dirty. The Washington Wizards in Toronto did this, I'm assuming this line moved since I last changed it. Jordan, might need you to make some adjustments on the fly here. We're at, Washington -1 now. Okay, so they were 2.5 point dogs, -1 now. And the total went from 237.5 to 237. Okay, so pretty negligible there. The Washington Wizards won't have Rui Hachimura in this game. That doesn't really mean all that much. We can get into it. It's just been so difficult to figure out what that front court rotation under Brooks is going to look like so long as Len continues to get minutes. And I saw a great tweet from you last night. Maybe it was this morning about Scott Brooks' response to the question about Daniel Gafford deserving more minutes. And he just said yes. And you basically said, does he not know that he's the one that makes these decisions?
The guy doubles in 14 minutes. The guy's been playing great ever since coming to Washington. Gets to play 14 minutes last night, puts up a double. The reporter's like, do you think he should play more? And Brooks is like, yeah, I do.
Which means there's no way he plays more minutes tonight.
Right. I mean,
it's so dumb. We don't have to spend a lot of time on Russell Westbrook. It's honestly one of the simpler, and I know we hate this guy, but there's not a whole lot of an introduction or explanation or anything necessary here. The biggest thing for Westbrook, and this is all I'll say, right, is it's not the fact that he is an amazing per minute producer, which he is. It's not even the fact that you get the triple-double bonus on DraftKings pretty much locked in every game. but he also leads the league in minutes since the start of April. So you take a guy that produces like this, and then he's averaging 8 more minutes per game than Giannis. So since the start of April, 8 more minutes per game. It's crazy.
That's crazy. And I mean, I think Giannis was dealing with injuries during that time, but that's still
he was. But it's just just let me. The point is that he's playing a huge amount of minutes.
Yeah, he just the reason he needs to be more expensive isn't his per minute production. It's that it's the combination of per minute production, which is as good as basically anyone in the league, playing time, and the way he gets his points. Yeah. It's not like Steph Curry averages similar per minute production, but he has some huge games where he shoots the lights out, and then he has some disappointing games where he doesn't shoot as well. Westbrook just gets them by rebounds and assists, and then, oh, by the way, if he scores 30 actual points, he's going to score 80 fantasy points. So it's just so much. The consistency is there. The floor is there. The minutes are there. Like he just checks every single box, and it's insane that there's an 11K guy that needs to be 50% owned every single slate, but anything lower than that basically means he's underowned. So obviously just going right back to Westbrook here. But beyond that, there are still some pieces you can look at. Beal, is always going to be lower owned than Westbrook. That's a spot where you can go to. Like if you are making that pivot, for example, to Luka, like if you're playing Luka, I guess Luka, Curry, Beal probably doesn't work. But like if you're playing Luka or Curry instead of Westbrook, playing Beal makes some sense. Even though he doesn't really take away from Westbrook, since Westbrook's not scoring dependent, you still, there's a good chance Washington scores a lot of points here, so it still gives you access. You can play Beal alongside Westbrook too. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, especially on a 7-game slate, because again, Beal can score 40. Beal scored 42 real points yesterday, and Westbrook scored 80 fantasy points. So you can play these guys together, especially where Beal's still relatively inexpensive. Davis Bertans came off the bench with Rui out, played 28 minutes. The previous game where Rui was out, you got 34. So I think on average, you're probably getting 30-ish minutes from Bertans, potentially more if he's playing well. He's still cheap. That's someone you can definitely look at, especially if his ownership is relatively low. Right now, we have him at 15%, which is probably a little bit higher than he needs to be, but still a reasonable option. Daniel Gafford, if he were to start, I think would be a great play. I doubt he starts because it's Scott Brooks, but if he starts, I would really like Gafford.
Yeah, I would love Gafford in the event that he starts. His price isn't priced for someone that's only been playing, between 14 and 22 minutes, but he's north of a fantasy point per minute guy this season and definitely on the Wizards. So it makes sense to me. The Toronto side is where things get wild because now you have no Lowry. He was ruled out right before that last game. What was it, against the Clippers, I think? Yeah, against the Clippers, like 20 minutes before lock. No OG Anunoby. Chris Boucher remains out. Gary Trent Jr. is likely to play here. And Watanabe's also out. So even Watanabe played 30 minutes last game, Adam. I think there are a ton of spots here that stand out. And the biggest thing for me, if you want to go back, very similar to what we were talking about with Westbrook, Siakam's a 1.13 fantasy point per minute guy on the season. Forget about with Lowry on or off. At this point, forget about that. Van Vliet's a 1.10 or 1.1 fantasy point per minute guy, but they're playing 40 minutes every game when it's close. So I don't care as much about that as long as you're out there getting a ton of run. And then you take Lowry off the floor. I'm more than willing to pay $8K for these guys against the fastest paced team in the league. Toronto is going to be super chalky today, but how can they not be chalky when Washington's last 3 games, you ready for this? Their last 3 games that they've played have seen total scores of 269, 295, and 249.
Yeah, and that's with them playing better defense from an efficiency standpoint.
Yeah,
still obviously giving up a ton of points because they play so fast. But Toronto should be one of the most popular teams tonight. The game's likely to be very high scoring. They're missing one of their main pieces. You have Van Vliet in 11 games this year without Lowry and with Siakam. He's averaged 1.19 DraftKings points per minute, and he's probably playing 38 to 40 minutes. Siakam's averaged 1.14. He's playing 38 to 40 minutes. You have last game where Lowry was out, you had Watanabe start and play 30 minutes. You had Flynn only play 13 off the bench, but now you don't have Watanabe. The 2 games ago with Lowry out, Flynn started, played 36 and a half minutes against the Jazz. I'm assuming you're getting 30 plus from Flynn again at a cheap price tag. Granted, I don't expect him to be as productive as he was when he was playing without Van Vliet and without Lowry, but you don't really need him to be. I mean, he's going to get more possessions in this game, and he's just, likely to outperform a $4,300 price tag. If you were to get like, I guess they could start Stanley Johnson in place of Watanabe if for some reason they wanted to. He's $3K. That would give you a strong value option there. I think you're just getting a ton of really good plays from Toronto. Sorry, I was trying to quickly figure out how Gary Trent fits back into this, but with Lowry out, it doesn't matter a whole lot.
God, I would love nothing more than to not have to worry about playing Stanley Johnson today. I can't stand rostering players like that because it's very possible that he goes out there, plays 30 minutes, gets like 4 spot up opportunities and doesn't touch the ball otherwise.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, you can kind of say the same thing for Bembry, except for at least he handles the ball a little bit.
Yeah, Bembry can get it done at times. He can get you a few stocks mixed in along the way, but I think that the obvious answer is we're going to have to make some decisions with these very, very, very cheap wing values, I should say forward values for the Toronto Raptors tonight. We don't really have a choice.
Yeah, and I think one way to approach it is I probably just don't want more than one of Stanley Johnson, Malachi Flynn, or DeAndre Bembry in my lineup because those are the guys taking minutes from each other and to some extent probably a hot hand situation. Like Siakam, Van Vliet, Birch are getting theirs. Trent, should get should get enough minutes. But you're going to get, I think, Johnson, Flynn, Bembry kind of competing for that final spot in the closing lineup. I
love Kem Birch tonight, by the way. Like, absolutely love him tonight. And I don't know what his ownership is going to settle in at, but if it's lower, if it's where it's even close to from earlier, probably won't be. But I would absolutely love it. He's a 0.93 fantasy point per minute guy, or he has been a 0.93 fantasy point per minute guy, almost 33 minutes per game in the 7 games that since Boucher went down. And I don't know, you think about who he's going up against in this front court, like fast-paced spot, and something you and I touched on the other day that I think is so important. These teams could both shoot miserably tonight, and Kem Birch is still going to have additional rebound opportunities in a game that has excessive amount of possessions, more rebounding, more putback opportunities, more shot blocking opportunities. If he's out there for 33 minutes in the front court, how do you not like him at a mid 5K price point?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because normally you're going to see like your games with really high totals are typically between 2 really fast-paced teams. So you it all just gets lumped together. But there's a really good point between where pace is different than just, a game having a high total. Because if you have 2 like relatively slow-paced teams, but they're just like really efficient offenses, if they're missing their shots, the game probably is just going to be disappointing from a fantasy standpoint because you're not getting a ton of possessions. You're just not getting a lot of scoring either. But like in a game like this, it's likely to be high scoring because of the number of possessions. But even if the game ends up not being that high scoring, there's still going to be a lot of fantasy stats. It's just going to be, going to different spots. It's going to be the rebounders like Birch and Westbrook, as opposed to guys like Beal pouring in points. But the number of possessions is just going to mean there's a ton of fantasy points, whether it comes from rebounding or scoring.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God. It's like a Westbrook's wet dream to have a game like that.
The other team shoots 25% on 110 possessions.
He goes like 10, 40, and 40.
Right.
All right. So who are your top options for Toronto? We got to kind of boil this down because this is the most important team. We'll get to Detroit. They just ruled a bunch of guys in, but this is such an important spot for Toronto.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's Van Vliet, then Siakam. Just you get that slight, Van Vliet produces at a slightly higher rate and they play similar minutes. Then I would say Birch. Flynn's kind of his own guy. Like if Flynn is starting, I think he's the top value here as far as like if you're just talking like cheap guys that let you get up to Westbrook. But in terms of like the actual normal starters, I would say Van Vliet, Siakam, Birch.
Okay. Let's move on then. Memphis and Detroit. The Memphis Grizzlies are facing a skeleton crew Detroit team. This is by design, of course. Dwayne Casey and company doing what they can to lose. 9-point favorites, 222 total. We just did get word though, and I didn't have time to update this. So that Wayne Ellington and Corey Joseph are both in for this one. That is, it's kind of important because if they were both out, you were looking at like 35 minutes from Frank Jackson. Killian Hayes minutes would have been up consistently. Did we get anything on him yet? Because I know Ellington's in, Joseph's in. I think Killian Hayes is still questionable.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything beyond him being questionable.
How much of a wrench does this throw into the works with Joseph and Ellington being active?
It makes me a lot more hesitant to go to this team just because Now you're talking about a team, Detroit, like if you think back to before they started just ruling half their team out every game, this was a really, really frustrating DFS team because they were basically tanking while still playing all their guys and just playing a super deep rotation, not really giving enough minutes to a lot of guys to be good fantasy options. I think you run that risk now. Like if I still think Sadiq Bey gets his minutes. I think Isaiah Stewart gets his minutes. Those are guys they're looking to develop. Frank Jackson probably still plays like 28 to 30. Boya probably plays around 30 for whatever that's worth. But you're just getting, Corey Joseph's going to have the ball in his hands a little bit more, which is going to make everybody else, a little bit less exciting. You're just going to get, Wayne Ellington probably stealing a couple of minutes here and there from guys like Jackson and Boya. And there's also just a lower floor because you have more bodies to just, kind of take up minutes. So you're doing that as you're also getting the price tags coming up on these guys. I think it makes it so there's still some secondary options here, but nothing that I would really be prioritizing.
Yeah. Earlier in the day, there was a lot more that I liked. Now I will say this much though. Isaiah Stewart, and I'm going out of order here. We'll go to Memphis after this. Not as much to talk about. Isaiah Stewart's interesting to me. He's 5,800 power forward eligible on FanDuel, 6,500 center eligible only on DraftKings. A couple games recently, his minutes have taken a downward turn outside of that 32 minutes he got in Orlando. But if you dig a little deeper, he had 3 fouls in the first half in both of them. 2 in the first quarter, came back in the second quarter, boom, caught his third. So then Jahlil Okafor got more run off the bench. But Isaiah Stewart was easily tracking 30-plus minutes in both of those games that he got into foul trouble. Now, his production has come down recently, but he's still a +1 per minute guy on the season. And the matchup against Jonas Valanciunas isn't exactly friendly, but what do you think about him? Power forward, 5,800, 6,500 on DraftKings. If we can get back to those 30 plus 32 minutes in the event that he's not in foul trouble again.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a secondary option here. Like he still has a ceiling. We know that. We've seen him go out there and put up 50 fantasy point games, but he's at a price point now where I think it accounts for that ceiling when you also consider the downside risk. He is still a pretty unproven player in the NBA. He had a nice run when he was first inserted into the starting lineup, but he was also playing at rates that you hadn't seen coming off the bench. So it was kind of a question of like, did he improve? Has he figured it out? Or is this kind of a hot streak? And it seems like, even ignoring the foul trouble and looking at recent production, to at least some extent, it was a bit of a hot streak as well. So, he does have that upside. He is likely to play 30 to 32 minutes as long as he stays out of foul trouble. But you've also seen the salary elevate, and I think he's pretty much priced where he should be.
Anybody else for Detroit?
I think that's about it. If Killian Hayes is ruled out, I think $3,400 Saban Lee is worth a look in tournaments. Again, not somebody that's particularly safe, not somebody you feel great about, but he is a good per minute producer and he would become the backup point guard.
All right. Now, what about the Memphis Grizzlies side of the ball? John Morant coming off a very strong game yesterday. Someone in chat, I forget who it was, must feel justified in all of their reasoning. The top 5 point guard comments. No, but I think they were saying top 5 on the night. He was very solid, 37 and 10. The big question I want to start with, though, with Grayson Allen out, only playing 6 minutes yesterday before going down with that abdominal strain. Desmond Bane has played 26 minutes in that game that he started with Grayson Allen out. Mind you, he got in very early foul trouble, caught 2 fouls early on. Then he played 31 minutes yesterday. Shot volume hasn't been bad at all. He's 22 actual points in both of those, Adam. He's $3,600 on DraftKings today, probably going to get the start again against the bad Detroit team.
Yeah, I'd expect him to start, and I think on average you're getting 26 to 28 minutes, but if he's playing well, you certainly could get more. Definitely not a guy that I mind taking a shot at. He's not the best fantasy producer, but he's not terrible either. Gives you, 0.75 to 0.8 DraftKings points per minute on the season, I think. So, yeah, I mean, 3,600, I think it's just, you're not really playing him because you're expecting a huge game from him. You're playing him because of what else it opens up, in your lineup and the gap, like getting up to another one of the, Luka, Westbrook, Curry type guys, like is just so much better than, being stuck in the mid range when you're talking about the ceiling those guys have. So Bane, I think will open up a lot. Another guy here that potentially could benefit is DeAnthony Melton, who he's a good fantasy producer, but Memphis just doesn't play him as much as they probably should for whatever reason. So it makes him risky. Like on average, he's probably going to get 21 to 22 minutes. But if Bane gets in foul trouble or Melton plays well and they leave him out there, if you get 25, 26 minutes from Melton at 4,300, he can be a slate breaking play. So I like the upside for Melton. I like the point per dollar projection for Bane.
Okay. Anybody else for Memphis?
I think that's about it. Dylan Brooks, always has a ceiling, but he's at a price point that I think will be kind of difficult to really need on this slate. Valanciunas and Morant, we know they have very high ceilings, but again, I just anticipate kind of a lineup build where I'm getting, a couple guys above 9K and then a bunch of guys like 5K and below.
Got over almost 2,100 people watching. If you jumped in late and you forgot to do a very important thing, hitting that like button, please do so now and get back to whatever you were doing so we can win some money tonight. But do not forget to do that and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Jordan, we have 3 games to go. Let's talk Awesemo Hall of Fame. I always love when he jumps up in his seat whenever I mention his name, like he knows something's about to happen. Let's get to the Hall of Fame. Say what's up to all of the winners from around the DFS space yesterday, rocking that Awesemo logo, that Awesemo avatar. Here's another one right here. What is that, 10K? See, it's so tough for me to read. 10K, yeah, from Hustle Font. Good stuff. 417.7. Third out of, looks like 80,000 people. You want to get up here? You want to win a free month of Awesemo Plus? Go and download the avatar at awesemo.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at Awesemo Hall of Fame and win a free month of Awesemo Plus. It's $100 value. Finish top 3 in a tournament of 5,000 people or more. Boom, you get your money. You also get the free month to use the tools, all of the tools that we have on the site, everything included for the entire month for every single sport. $5,600 win here. First, finally got another takedown thanks to the Awesemo crew. Good stuff, brother. And then Jason RD 917 come in second place in the 2K quarter jukebox. Doesn't matter if it's a quarter or a nickel. If you get top 3, 5,000 entries or more, you're getting that free month as long as you have the Awesemo avatar. Kevin says somehow stat correction cost me an NBA takedown. Still a solid showing. Grateful for the Awesemo tools and strategy shows. $300. And here's another one from Frank. Was tied with Awesemo. I'm not going to read all of that, but 3rd time winning over 800 this season. The time I take crunching and investing money seriously. Shout out to Awesemo and the crew. So I'm assuming that's it. Congratulations to everybody. That's the Awesemo Hall of Fame. Download that avatar so we could see you up the top and put you here on the segment each and every night on the Deeper Dive. All right, Adam. Atlanta and the Indiana Pacers. We've got Atlanta in a weird spot today, and this is actually one of the areas that I've struggled with most. I'll break it down to you and get your opinion because that's what everyone's waiting for. Trae Young has not been in the same company as Westbrook and Curry and Doncic and Giannis this year, but he is like a 1.38 DraftKings point per minute guy. He's still a 40+% assist guy, 33% usage player. He'll play upwards of 38, 40 minutes in close games. Clint Capella has a matchup against the Miles Turner-less Indiana Pacers front court, has legitimate 20 plus upside in a game like this. And both of them, at least Capella, because of his price point, going pretty much overlooked outside of a little bit on FanDuel. Trae Young around 16%. So I think this is a spot that could absolutely blow up. The Pacers are playing at the league's fastest pace over the last month. Not a good defensive team. They're 5.5 points per 100 possessions worse defensively with Miles Turner off the floor this season. So can we make the argument? Can we justify going to the top dogs on Atlanta today, getting very little ownership given this matchup against the Pacers? Floor is yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great spot to look to in tournaments because they're going to be tough to get into lineups because of the opportunity cost, paying up to Capella or to Young. It's going to cost you guys that are really, really good. But with, how concentrated you see ownership in the NBA these days, because everyone's using similar projections, everyone has, or most people have a pretty good idea of how to make lineups that project well. Looking to guys like Young and Capella, Young, I think actually getting a little bit more ownership now than I expected. He's at like 17% on DraftKings, but Capella's at about 5%. These are guys where, I really like them. I really like the matchup. Indiana's actually played at the fastest pace by a couple possessions over the last month, and they haven't been very good defensively. But even though I really like them, I realize how difficult it's going to be to get them into lineups. So they are guys where in larger field tournaments, especially, or even in lineups where you have a pretty chalky build, then you can go to someone like Capella at 5% to be, a difference maker. He's been playing big minutes lately. He's getting, he played 34 minutes 2 games ago. Last night was a completely non-competitive game where he played 23.5 minutes, didn't play in the fourth quarter, but he played like 16.5 minutes in the first half. You're pretty consistently seeing him in competitive games get those 34 minutes now. And Earlier in the season, it was always just a question of, is Capella going to play 28 minutes or can he get the 32 or 33? Now he's pretty consistently getting the minutes. The production's there, 1.35 to 1.4 fantasy points per minute. So yeah, I think either of these guys are good options to look to in tournaments just because of the ceiling they give you at lower ownership. Capella in particular, really projected for not much ownership at all.
I'm with you. It's a tough spot to justify because there's so many good plays, but would it shock you if Atlanta comes out and a couple of these guys have a huge game against this Pacers team? It really wouldn't. I mean,
no, not at all.
Their defense without Miles Turner, 5.5 points per 100 possessions works is bad. Like it's a bad drop off in defense with Miles Turner off the floor, less blocked shots, less ability to protect the rim. Clint Capella could feast here. And if Goga, who's questionable, ends up being out, how does Capella not eat them alive?
Yeah, agreed completely. And the logic here even extends to the rest of the Hawks. Obviously Young and Capella are the guys that you would feel the best about being in your lineups because they're the best fantasy producers on the team. But, you look at a John Collins who has very volatile playing time. You're not counting yesterday because of the blowout, but even in the previous game, he played like 18.7 minutes, didn't play at all in the fourth quarter, dealt with some foul trouble in that game. But normally you're going to get around 30 minutes from Collins. He's someone that he's inconsistent because he has to deal with Capella taking rebounds and he has to deal with Trae Young taking shots. But in any one game, we know Collins is talented. We know he can go out there and just post a monster game in a really appealing matchup like this. Gallinari's capable of getting hot at 4,700, picking up a couple of extra minutes and being a really good play in tournaments. Like all these guys are very low owned. And the reason is that the probability, the likelihood of them having a great game tonight is relatively low compared to other options, but it is a great spot. And these are guys that will get the opportunity to do so. So I think at the low ownership, they're guys that are really appealing as, one of your lower owned contrarian pieces in tournaments.
What do you like, if anything, from Indy right now with news still pending?
Yeah, I mean, with news pending, it's tough to like much at all here because you have gotten Indiana priced up pretty much across the board. Sabonis, not as appealing a matchup tonight against Atlanta as he's had recently with the Kings and with the Wizards. He's still really good, but it's just so tough for me to put Sabonis ahead of someone like Curry or Doncic or Westbrook at a similar price point. Even if Brogdon's out, if Sabonis looks better for sure if Brogdon's out, and he would at least be reasonable. If Brogdon's in, I think it's really, really tough to get to Sabonis. LeVert's priced up. Brogdon is priced up despite being out, so many games recently. So it's really, really tough for me to get to anything from Indiana.
Pacers lost by 11, but that game actually wasn't close at all. And Sabonis still played 37 minutes, which was crazy. But I'm with you.
He played 43 in the game before that was competitive.
Right. Like in competitive games, especially this one, if Sabonis gets those minutes, that's why you're seeing those 70-plus point games. But you're right, it's super tough to get there when he's priced alongside some of these other options. It just makes it really difficult. Let's go to OKC and Golden State then. And I will ask you a question before we touch on this one. The Lakers and Clippers, how much time do you think we need on that game?
Probably not much.
Like 30 seconds? In all seriousness, I don't think there's a lot in that game. So I don't mind spending some additional time here on the Warriors specifically, but we'll kick it off with the Oklahoma City Thunder, 14.5-point dogs against the Warriors in Golden State, 226 total. Lou Dort is questionable. Pokusevski's out. Can we get to anything of value for the Thunder tonight?
I mean, it's going to be really tough to trust this team because they're just running a really deep rotation right now. I mean, you had Pokusevski out last game, and they still ran a legitimate 10-man rotation. Every single play, they had 10 guys play at least 16 minutes. Darius Baisley led the team with 32 minutes. It's going to be really tough to trust anything here. There are still, guys that give you reasonable ceilings for their prices. We saw almost 30 minutes from Moses Brown. We've seen plenty of games recently where he plays like 18 or 20 minutes. So a very wide range on minutes there. You got 30 minutes from Isaiah Roby, who normally produces at a pretty good rate. He had a terrible game. But he's still only 4,500 today. He should be in the starting lineup, probably gives you another 28 to 30 minutes. So probably going to be low owned, not the worst, guy to take a stab at and hope he has a good game. But yeah, it's just going to be really tough to prioritize anything here because they're playing so many guys and it's just a team that isn't looking to win. None of these guys or most of these guys don't produce that, there's not one guys that produce like 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. We were saying, oh, maybe they'll play 30 minutes. It's guys that produce like 0.9. You're saying maybe they'll play 30 minutes. So it's like, even if they get the minutes, there's still no guarantee they really have a good fantasy game.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. 500 likes, and we still had like 9 minutes to go. Appreciate you guys. Thumbs up. The Warriors are in a position where they could just, absolutely shit all over OKC tonight. Strange things happen. Bad teams stay competitive up until the fourth quarter. Sometimes they even win, but this doesn't feel like one of those games. The Golden State Warriors 14.5. They're more than 2 touchdown favorites here, Adam. And Curry's averaging 37 points per game, not fantasy points, 37 points per game over the last month. Draymond Green is averaging 1.11 DraftKings points per minute over that same span. Wiggins has been, decent, but I still am not the biggest advocate when it comes to Wiggins. In 66 games, he has 150 fantasy point performance this season. Chew on that. But anyway, there's going to be ownership here because it is the Thunder, and the Warriors have a particularly high implied total today.
Yeah, and there should be, because
sure,
like you're going to get, maybe they don't play the full, 4 quarters, but this team has 121 point implied total. OKC is one of the fastest teams in the league, one of the least efficient defenses. Steph Curry in 10 games without Kelly Oubre this year has a 39.7% usage percentage. He has a 69.9 true shooting percentage. So he has a 70% true shooting percentage on 40% usage in the 10 games without Oubre. Obviously, he's not going to continue to be that efficient, but this offense is better without Oubre out there. It's giving Curry more looks. It's making the whole offense better. Still has a 28% assist percentage in those games as well. He looks great. The only, I think he's very comparable to Luka. I'd put him behind Westbrook just because, Westbrook is Westbrook. But Curry still looks great here. If Lou Dort is out, God help the Thunder. Like, not that he's the single-handedly.
God help the Thunder.
Like, not that he's going to single-handedly stop Curry, but like, what are they going to do against Curry if Dort's not out there? So Curry. If I gave
great. You even money, Curry faces the Thunder 5 times in a row. He has to get 40 points by the end of the third quarter once. Would you take the yes?
5 games in a row?
5. So he plays them 5 times. In one of those games, doesn't matter which one, he needs to score 40 points through the first 3 quarters.
I think so, yeah.
I think I might too. The reason I posed that hypothetical is because they could blow them out and Curry could still have 40 in 3 quarters tonight.
Yeah, and I think, if we're saying, the same team as right now, so no Oubre, no Weissman, I think there's I think I would take the yes.
Okay. I cut you off. What else are you doing with the Warriors?
Yeah, I think Green's good. I think Wiggins is good. Like, if you're, Wiggins is kind of one of those guys that makes sense, sort of like I was saying with Bradley Beal, but it's a little bit different scenario here because Wiggins is scoring dependent, and to some extent, so is Curry. So like if Wiggins were to go out there, not that it's super likely because it's Andrew Wiggins, but like Wiggins could just blow out the Thunder, and Curry has a relatively disappointing game because of that. So he's someone where, like, if your team has Westbrook and Luka, for example, or just, doesn't have Curry, Wiggins is a guy that kind of makes some sense because he, to some extent, negatively correlates with Curry, and gives you access to the Golden State offense if you can't afford Curry. Draymond, we know, isn't scoring dependent. He's likely to just post a monster game here regardless. Kent Bazemore at 5,500 is a reasonable value. Toscano Anderson's been playing big minutes off the bench. He played 25 minutes last game, but you've seen some others where he plays 32 to 34. I think Curry's the priority here. Green and Wiggins look good. No issues with Bazemore or Toscano Anderson either.
Okay. Well, we got one game to go. It's the Lakers and it's the Clippers. This would be a perfect time to talk about Jock Market, the sponsor of the Deeper Dive. And remember, right after this, do not go anywhere. Live Before Lock is coming up next. You got Greg Ehrenberg, you got Eric Lindquist. Then the MMA Strategy Show at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Jason Floyd and Pete Rogers, the 2 best in the business when it comes to breaking down your UFC cards. So stick around for that. You won't want to miss it. Today's show sponsored by Jock Market. If you haven't heard, the Jock Market, the app, download the app, has turned fantasy sports into a stock exchange. You don't have to wait until the end of the game to make money because Jock Market allows you to buy and sell shares of players in real time for real money with guaranteed payouts for all shares at the end of the night. You got daily markets for basketball, hockey, baseball, PGA. You can make real money down to the hour, the minute, all the way down to the second of any match or game. The coolest part, though, is you can use the pregame IPO to pick up shares of your favorite players. You can then buy them, sell them, or hold them during the game based on your analysis. So if you think a player early in the game is in a phenomenal spot, or you've got a read on something, but they're going super cheap, you buy them, and then you can sell them at a massive markup. That's the whole idea here with Jock Market. You're taking DFS, you're blending it with the stock market. You're making these type of decisions, buying, holding, and selling on the fly throughout the entire day if you use the pregame IPO as well. Download the app, use the promo code Awesemo20. It'll get you $20 bonus on your first deposit. It's AWESEMO20, all one word. It's an exclusive offer for the Awesemo community. Take advantage of it today. Awesemo20 for $20 on your first deposit. Download the Jock Market app, check it out, and be sure to stick around 30 minutes after today's Live Before Lock show, where Greg and Eric will break everything down for Jock Market and get you ready and making money over there immediately. All right, Adam, we're about up against it. I'll just let you close with the Lakers and the Clippers. The LA Clippers tonight are 8.5 point favorites against the LeBron James-less and Dennis Schroeder-less Lakers, 2-11 total. Pretty ugly here.
Yeah, not too much stands out here. You know, two teams that are still solid defensively. Neither one plays at a super fast pace. Like Kuzma should start again, probably plays, around 32 minutes. I don't think he really stands out here. Anthony Davis is fine, but again, it's just hard to put him ahead of these other pay up options. Caruso's salary has come up. He should start again in Schroeder's place. But he's up over 4K now. On the other side, I think that Kawhi is somewhat interesting at only 8,800. He played about 33.5 minutes last game. So, you saw that he's not really limited, but again, it's gonna be really, really difficult to prioritize him at that price point over just, kind of finding a little bit more money for some of these other guys. Paul George is still priced out from Kawhi being out. Beverly's back. We saw a bunch of minutes for Jackson last game, but I would expect that those start to disappear as Beverly gets his legs back under him. There's not really much here that I'm interested in the context of the whole slate.
Okay. Somebody said plus 350 that Curry scores 40 by the end of the fourth. Yeah. Are you kidding me? Of course I'd take that. The guy's averaging like 37.5 over the last month.
Yeah. Yeah. Like why would anyone not take plus 350?
I don't know why nobody would take that. Tom Kennedy with the $20 super chat says, Laffy, give me a quick prop pick. I got you tomorrow, Tom. As a matter of fact, I'll give you 5 of them to kick off the show, but we got to go. It's 6:01. Eric and Greg are up right now. We'll see you back here. This is the Deeper Dive presented by Jock Market.
See you guys.
Later, boy.
Got internet and everything today.
What a
Oh, guess who's back? It is the Awesemo NBA Live Before Lock show, and even though I apparently have sketchy internet, I'm back to host tonight, as per usual, Thursday nights with Eric Lindquist, which you guys know what that means. We're going to be talking about the FanDuel and DraftKings slates for the next hour, but we're not going to be stopping there because after the slate locks, Eric and I talking about the Jock Market and their IPO pricing for the 30 minutes following lock. So first of all, Eric, thank you very much for filling in for me when my internet just inexplicably crapped out yesterday. Also, if you guys are not already doing it, as a favor to me, follow at Eric Lindquist on Twitter. Eric needs more Twitter followers. He did me a big favor yesterday, so going to make sure to hammer that home. But Eric, how are you and your internet doing at the Holiday Inn Express?
Yeah, so far so good. Yeah, my landlord over here, came in and was just making sure everything that was set to go because we have had no sketchy internet. I believe you are no longer able to give Kayla any crap here at this point in time. But room number 6 here at the Holiday Inn, we're still kicking.
No, I not only will I not give Kayla crap for all of her technical issues, but I'm going to help her out a little bit because we do have a giveaway going right now, guys. We're giving away a month of Awesemo Plus to 2 lucky winners. What you have to do is you subscribe to the @Awesemo. It's @Side Action HQ. So that is Kayla puts up a bunch of videos there, a separate YouTube channel affiliated with Awesemo, and that is @Side Action HQ. So subscribe to that channel and then comment on the latest video with your Twitter handle or Awesemo Plus username with a chance to win. We're going to be picking 2 lucky winners over there. So all you have to do is subscribe, comment on the most recent video, and help out our friend Kayla because I feel bad for all the times I've given her crap about her technological issues. And then all of a sudden, of course, just today we're all making fun of Jordan in the Slack chat going back and forth. And then there we go. It all comes crashing down. But all right, let's get into this slate. And first of all, one big overarching question I have for you, Eric. How are you handling the Oklahoma City Golden State Warriors game? The Warriors currently favored by 15 points. At least the sports books seem to imply that it's not going to be all that competitive. Now, I know that generally I don't go out and just predict blowouts. With that said, I did nerf the minutes for the Warriors starters a little bit in my projections for this game because I am a little concerned this game could be game could be one side. I don't want to end up with like 60% Steph Curry or 40% Draymond Green. Still guys I have in my player pool, but I don't want it to be a situation where I'm massively overweight to guys who might not play the fourth quarter. So did you go ahead and take any sort of precautions for this game potentially being one-sided?
I really didn't. And maybe I'm supposed to. That's interesting. We're starting off there. Philadelphia was only 13. They opened as 13-point favorites and ended up going up to 14.5. I was very confident that they were going to murder the Rockets, and they absolutely did. Kind of limited run for a lot of those starters. I don't really feel the same way about this game. I stayed away from it in the betting market. I feel like there's enough, maybe Golden State just doesn't impress me. Obviously, Steph Curry impresses me a lot, and he's probably the main reason that we're posing this question and figuring out what to do with him. But I haven't really done anything for this game specifically. It's kind of the one outlier that exists on this entire slate. I mean, you can look at 76ers Pellies or something like that, but for the most part, I'm not doing a whole lot here. What are you doing for it? Because I didn't even necessarily think too much about it. I don't want to be going that direction, but it was a couple days ago that it would have been. It was Sixers and Rockets. That's what I just said before. But that game yesterday, I felt much more lopsided about. This one, I really don't.
All right. So one thing I'm going to say here, first of all, ownership projections, free on Awesemo.com. And something about that is going to be relevant here is I have Steph Curry overall as a really strong play, even though I nerfed his minutes a little bit. I gave him 33 minutes. That still makes him a strong play. And there's enough value, at least on DraftKings, I didn't find it that difficult to get Russell Westbrook and Steph Curry into the same lineups. But because I'm a little uncertain with what's going to happen in the Golden State game, I'm just aligning myself with the field on Steph Curry. So right now we have him projected for 28.4% ownership on DraftKings. I went almost exactly to that same number. FanDuel is a little bit different of a story because we have Steph Curry at 38% ownership. That's a number that I'm more comfortable going underweight to the field on. But DraftKings, I just went kind of even with the field, more flexibility, easier to get him into lineups. And then Draymond Green, also somebody really chalky on DraftKings today, 23.6% projected ownership on FanDuel. Draymond Green a little more expensive, but projected for 20% ownership right now. But Draymond, I'm a little bit underweight to the field on, but Steph, I think there's a mass amount of upside there. The other thing too is Steph could go out and hit 10 threes by halftime or something like that in this matchup. But to me, something else to consider, if If Russell Westbrook wasn't on this slate, I feel like I'd have really difficult decisions to make. But for me, it's easy enough to just be like, hey, I know me and you, we've been big Russell Westbrook guys for the last, I don't even know how long now, but Russell Westbrook is basically a lock and load player for us at this point in the season. So I have a whole bunch of Russell Westbrooks. That makes it not a situation where I feel like I need to get a ton of Steph Curry. But Russell Westbrook is my priority at the high end of the point guard position. I assume it's the same for you because it's like every other Russell Westbrook slate.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing. Those are kind of the two that I just keep wanting to go up to. I had said before, I think it changed a little bit, but 765 minutes for Oubre before the last game, and just over 1.7 DraftKings points per minute for Steph Curry, just right next to Giannis Antetokounmpo in terms of best fantasy points per minute on the season, 1.67. Now that I'm looking at it here with Kelly Oubre off the floor, just kind of a ridiculous amount of production for him. It takes a meaningful jump there. I've been overweight on Steph Curry and Russ because we've been able to do that on these kind of slates over and over and over again. I don't see anything changing there. That just made me think of Marshawn Lynch over and over and over and over, just to keep doing that with Russell Westbrook and Steph Curry.
All right, we do have a point guard related question here from our guy Giles in our Awesemo Premium Slack chat. He's asking, are you guys going to Brad Wanamaker today? And let's see, where's Wanamaker and currently in my lineups and where's ownership currently is. So I have 15% Brad Wanamaker at the moment, and he is currently 6% owned. So he's somebody I'm a little bit overweight to the field on. So here's what I think is important to look at with Brad Wanamaker. Even though I was expecting last game we were just going to see LaMelo Ball just go full out, play his full minutes, and they kind of limited him a little bit. I mean, he still played over 30 minutes, but it's not like we're getting 36 to 38 minutes out of LaMelo Ball. And I kind of think that could be the case going forward. And we saw Brad Wanamaker play a pretty substantial role last game, and we still have a bunch of guys out for the Charlotte Hornets. Devontae Graham ruled out again. Miles Bridges in the health and safety protocol. Cody Martin out. Gordon Hayward out. So with all that in mind, I think Brad Wanamaker is going to continue to play a fairly substantial role off the bench. And given that the field isn't on him in a game where he played 31 minutes last game, by the way, last game, he was good from a fantasy perspective. It's not like he did anything absurd from a points per minute perspective. He played 31 minutes, 15 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 28 DraftKings points. I mean, if he could do something similarly, on a points per minute basis, even if he plays a couple less minutes, if we get somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 fantasy points, 26 fantasy points from Brad Wanamaker at his price point, I don't have an issue with that. So did you get to Brad Wanamaker today?
So I'm right at the field, and I was kind of expecting going into this slate that I was going to be over. But here's my major concern about this, and let me know what you think about it. Malik Monk played like garbage. He went 0 for 8 from the field right off the bat, got limited to 19 minutes, and that's coming off of a 27-minute game and a 10-point loss to Miami. He's coming back from the shoulder injury. His minutes were trending up. Brad Wanamaker came out in that first rotation and played awesome, like flat out played awesome. And I was over the field. He was 1%. I think I had around 8 or 10% of him because I just thought that there was a possibility he played 24, 26 minutes, and it fit well. I didn't want to play Malik Monk, who is a shooting-dependent player, sitting under 0.9 FanDuel points per minute over here on the season. But Malik Monk went out, played like absolute garbage. I think if Malik Monk were to knock down a couple shots and be somewhat effective in his rotations, that you could see that cut directly into Brad Wanamaker's minutes. And I think that that's kind of my major apprehension is you've got those 4 guards that are going to be rotating around minutes at the 1 and the 2. I think Monk goes into that category with Brad Wanamaker as the backups for Rozier, for Ball. I have my concerns that if Monk gets off to a better start than he had against Detroit, that you might see Brad Wanamaker really kind of fail to meet expectations. And he's still 3,400 over on DraftKings. What is he over on FanDuel? He's still pretty cheap. So sitting at 3,900, I still think you can take some shots there, but I'm not nearly as excited about playing him now that he has some ownership next to him, as opposed to when I knew he was going to be like 1% on that last slate.
Yeah, so to me, he's a much better play on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel. But to your point about Malik Monk, I have Malik Monk playing more minutes than he played last game. I have Brad Wanamaker playing less minutes than he played last game. But even giving Brad Wanamaker 28 minutes, I have him as a fairly good play at a 3,400 price tag, at least one that to me warrants more than 6% ownership on DraftKings, especially when, there's Russell Westbrook on the slate. There's Steph Curry on the slate. So there are guys to pay up for. Luka Doncic, obviously another one, although he's somebody I'm not getting to quite as much. But once again, this is another slate that sets up as stars and scrubs for me. And Brad Wanamaker is the scrubbiest of the scrubs that I'm rostering tonight. So,
hey, Greg, I think he's 13% over on DraftKings. I'm looking over at FanDuel is where I believe he's 6%. So I think you might have those flip-flopped.
Let's see. So, and also I'm going to refresh. Let's see if we have a latest
Oh,
ownership
okay.
upset.
Yeah, he's up to 13 here now, which is why I was saying I'm like right around the field, a little bit under on DraftKings, and then FanDuel right at that 6% number.
All right. Well, I said I have 15%, which is what I have right now. So I'm I'm the slightest,
very much in line with
overweight.
the field.
But yeah, so it's still bread Wanamaker. Even I'll say 13%. Hey, he warrants being 2% over that number, according to my lineups right now. And then of course we're gonna get news in 5 minutes. It's gonna change all of that anyway. But kind of going in line with some of the guards here. What did you do with Luka Doncic? Because I have exposure to Russell Westbrook overweight to the field as per usual. Like I said, Steph Curry, I'm about even with the field, and pretty flat ownership with these guys right now in terms of across the board what they're owned. There's a little bit more going to Russ and Curry, but I mean, we've got Russell Westbrook right now, 30.4% projected ownership on DraftKings. Steph Curry, 28.4%. And then Luka 22.6. And to me, he just isn't the same play as those guys. It doesn't mean I rate him out poorly in his overall projection. I just have Steph Curry and Russell Westbrook projected higher. And with those guys also being around the same price range, I'm underweight to the field on Luka. So how does your ownership to him differentiate from the field?
So I'm basically a little bit under. I'm right at 18% right now over on DraftKings. We've got him coming in around 23%. I also made him exclusively small forward. And I think I did that primarily on Cruncher. Just click the small forward button there. I would much rather play him at that position where you're seeing a chalky Wiggins, who I do like a little bit. Kevin Durant as well. You can play him small forward, power forward. I'll let him pop up wherever he does. Tim Hardaway Jr., I was very high on him the other night at low ownership as well. That ended up being a nice differentiating piece for me. Now he's coming in around 20%. That's going to be a pass for me today. Shooting dependent. Do like that he's getting into that starting lineup, starting to just take a boatload of shots. 18 3-point attempts against Miami, just kind of a ridiculous number there. He was definitely feeling it. And then Sadiq Bey as well, another shooting dependent play, but playing high 38 minutes, even in a disappointing fantasy outing last game. Like, it's just kind of a gross position. Stanley Johnson garnering ownership, Desmond Bane garnering ownership. I think playing Luka at that position on DraftKings specifically is kind of the path that I'm taking. Over on FanDuel, I'm very intrigued by what you're going to be doing at the point guard position here as well, because Steph is far and away, like, he's under 10K. He's going to be the priority for me. And I don't think that there's any way around that. But getting down there to Russ and Doncic is kind of my next preferred numbers, and skipping the Trae Young and LaMelo Ball route is kind of what I'm doing. What are you doing on FanDuel at point guard?
So FanDuel point guard right now, and I think this is a really good position to pay up for. Like, Trae Young is a massively different play on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings, because Trae Young is 8,600 on FanDuel, but he's 9,400 on DraftKings. So Trae Young to me is a pretty important play on FanDuel. And then it's also different because, Russell Westbrook is a little bit more appropriately priced at 11,600, whereas Steph Curry is all the way down to 9,900. So at 9,900 also, I think that makes Steph Curry a little bit harder over. That's also why his ownership is so much higher on FanDuel, though. I think a number still to come underweight to the field on, because the last ownership update we had on Steph Curry, he is picking up, I read up for about 38% ownership on FanDuel. That's a really high number. And for those kind of numbers, I think that Westbrook actually makes for a good pivot, because as good as Westbrook has played recently, only 17% projected ownership right now on FanDuel. So given that he's 17% and we have Steph Curry at 38%, I think that's a pretty easy way to get some leverage on the field. Just swap those numbers. That's really my inclination, what to do paying up for the point guard position. But overall, I do think it's a position to pay up for and then just go cheap elsewhere.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. And that it's not that I don't like Trae Young. 8,600 is a great tag, but I don't think you really need it. And you're kind of forced into some cheaper plays. I mean, 5,600 pays more. Stanley Johnson, I see some unenthusiastic people in the chat for him, which I think makes sense. He's 3,500 though on FanDuel at the min at a small forward position. If you wanted to go the Michael Mulder route, I think you got to be hoping for a blowout in that situation. I'm probably not going to, but there's so many cheap spots to be going to. Isaiah Stewart's under 6K there, so that kind of sticks out to me as well. You can go Sekou Demboya as well, under 5K. Like, I think paying up at point guard and going even above Trae Young, I might be just skipping that ownership and just being like, Luka and Westbrook, go get it for me.
All right, so a couple of things. Number one, we did get news. We'll hit on that in a second. We also have a super chat to hit, but here's news. Malcolm Brogdon out. Jeremy Lamb out, Sumner out, and Batadze in for the Pacers today. We're going to hit on that in a second. But first, Soldope1234, super chat from him. What's up, fellas? Thoughts on center and small forward on FanDuel tonight? Not sure what plays fit best there. Pay up at point guard and shooting guard. Thanks for all the help and best of luck to the fam tonight. So let's see. FanDuel, power forward, and center. I believe those are the positions he said he was asking about. Yes. So who to you are the best overall, let's say 2 favorite small forward and 2 favorite center plays on FanDuel tonight?
My small forward play, Kyle Anderson. I really don't like the position at all. It makes me feel really, really gross about it, but gives you a little bit of savings, 6,200. It's been playing much, much better here of late. Getting those minutes into the low 30s is a nice boost there for him. So I'm going a little bit more that direction. So he's kind of my preferred guy at small forward right now. I'm not sure if that's a hot take whatsoever, but I definitely like him there. Center on FanDuel, I'm kind of casting a little bit wider net, but my highest own right now is Ivica Zubats.
Yeah, these are 2 really crappy positions today on FanDuel, and they are absolutely hard to fill. I like Stanley Johnson right now on FanDuel as a cheap small forward option. I don't know what to make of the Raptors rotation today, but I think there's a chance that Stanley Johnson plays extended minutes. And with that in mind, especially if Gary Trent Jr. is limited coming back from injury. So Stanley Johnson, just because he's cheap, I think he could get extended minutes. He's a good enough fantasy producer that if he does happen to step into 26 or 27 minutes, and given what his price is, I think he could return value. And it also is more than anything to do with the position is so crappy. I'd rather have somebody cheap fail for me than somebody who's more expensive. So that's something that kind of leads me to Stanley Johnson.
I will say one caveat against that is Kevon Looney. He's been starting since it would have been April 12th. He started every single game. That's a run of 13 straight. How many times do you think he's gotten over 24 points on FanDuel in that stretch?
Not many.
The answer is 0. There are 0 times that he has done it. He is garnering the most ownership at the position. I have 0%. So it's not, if you want to talk about Chalk Lindquist, Chalk Kent, I'm ready to rock because I have 0% of the most expensive or the highest owned center on FanDuel. And I feel pretty good about it. So I am going 0% Kevon Looney and feel pretty secure about that. I think if this game does get wonky, it's not like Kevon Looney is going to be playing a lot of blowout time for him here either. So I feel very good about being light on him at 21%. That's kind of a pass for me. What say you about him? So as much as like I want to make mistakes cheap at these positions, he's not the route that I'm going.
Yeah, and although I mean when first, though, take on Stanley Johnson. Do you think that he's viable on both FanDuel and or DraftKings?
He is, and I see a lot of people hating him here, and I get it. Stanley Johnson's not an exciting play by any means, but you know, in limited minutes, 20 minutes, he has sparked some usage upside even on the 16th of April up to 24.2%, ended up putting up 29.2, 40.7% usage. And you're taking Kyle Lowry off the floor. I think there are some shots that are up for grabs here. I'm not sure what Gary Trent's minutes are going to look like, but at a tough to fill small forward position, go all the way to the bottom on him. I'm fine with that.
All right. And then we do have another super chat here. Actually, I forgot to give out my overall favorite center play right now on FanDuel, one that I don't feel particularly great about, but Nikola Vucevic is playing today. Apparently no minutes restriction, 9,000 is a little bit cheap for him. Even though we do have Zach LaVine back in the mix, Vucevic was playing pretty well even the last time LaVine was active. So that 9,000 price tag for Vucevic, I mean, you go back and look at his box scores as of late in games that he's been healthy for with the Bulls, he's pretty regularly been scoring 45 to 50 fantasy points. And I think he's a little bit underpriced right now on FanDuel. So Nikola Vucevic is the guy that I like the most there. And one more super chat here, and then we could hit on the two more super chats now. And then we could go hit on the Pacers news from Bryson Henry. Which player do you have locked for FanDuel GPP? So I don't have anybody locked. Eric, do you have anybody locked?
I have 80% Fred VanVleet. That's my highest owned player.
Okay, so for me, same vein, player that I have the most in my build right now is Pascal Siakam, but it's very similar to the idea of Fred VanVleet. And by the way, the Raptors, what are we doing here? We're trying to make the playoffs. We're trying to miss the playoffs. Like this team, I thought this was a spot where for sure they would be playing everybody. This is kind of their last chance to make the playoffs, right? They're 3 games behind the Washington Wizards for the final play-in spot in the East. And if they win this game against the Wizards, they're only 2 games back, and they hold the tiebreaker over Washington. Washington is a really tough finish to the season in their schedule, and you start to say, like, hey, outside chance for the Toronto Raptors to play themselves into the play-in game. And then, of course, out of nowhere, Kyle Lowry not playing today. So I don't even know what to make of that. But there's always somebody who's going to be out for the Raptors. And today, Kyle Lowry, Chris Boucher remains out, OG Anunoby, Aaron Baines, Yuta Watanabe, and Paul Watson all missing tonight's game. So I like Fred VanVleet. I like Pascal Siakam. Both of them are really strong plays for me. So nobody a lock for me, but the guys who Eric and I like the most overall, Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam on FanDuel. One more super chat here from Zach Anderson. Any interest in Dwight Powell on DraftKings? I believe I have him in 0% of my lineups. But let me, I have 0% right now.
So last night, and this is where I am actually very curious, and that's a very sharp super chat compared to what you would think it would be. So he's garnering 5%, which is kind of the scary part about this. I wrote about this last night on the Slate Starter article because I've been trying to break down certain situations that just confuse me rather than trying to guess at injuries the night before, because that feels a little bit pointless. But the last 3 games have been very fascinating for the center rotations from Dallas. Let me actually just kind of pull that up here quick. So jump along, fill some time here for a second. I'll read exactly kind of what I put up with that, because that'll speak a little bit more clearly to it, or I can stall for time like I just did there. All right, here you go.
Oh, okay.
So,
never mind.
The last 3 games. All right. So here's what happened. May 1st versus the Wizards, Powell started, but only 19 minutes. Cauley-Stein played 27 there. Cauley-Stein smashed. Okay. The next game, May 2nd. So that's their second most recent game. Powell started again. He got 20 minutes. Cauley-Stein only saw 9, and Powell smashed. He put up 30. And then on May 4th, their last game, Cauley-Stein got the starting nod, only received 18 minutes, and Powell got up to 28. I think there's a curious thing about this too. Maxi Kleber was in the first 2 games, wasn't in the last one. And Porzingis wasn't in all 3. So I do see a path for Powell to go out there and put up a 30-plus game. But the problem is I would kind of want to be targeting that at like 1 or 2%. I think there's enough other places that I might want to prefer, even at center, which isn't as good. Like, I think Isaiah Stewart, I wasn't sure where I was going to land on him. I'm going to be a little bit higher, I think, than the field on DraftKings. I think playing a lot of those power forwards, like Draymond Green fits in nicely over there. I'm always over the field on Jonas Valanciunas. But I think the Powell shot actually makes a lot more sense than maybe the 5% of what the field's at. I want to see that starting lineup, because I think if Powell starts, I don't know. I think the ownership might get up there a little bit higher, and I might be willing to go to 3K Willie Cauley-Stein. It seems like whoever starts has kind of been bit of recent weeks, like in the last few games. So it's a very difficult, very, very risky situation to be involved in. But I could see wanting to take some shots, considering he's put up 38 recently. He's under 3,500, or he's at 3,500 on DraftKings. Like, have a little bit if you feel good about it.
It's hard for me to feel good about Dwight Powell. He has made 16 starts this season. How many DraftKings points do you think he's averaging as a starter?
Probably like 15.
Yeah, 16.6.
Okay.
And to your point, yes, he's had exactly 2 good starts this year. He had a game, which, by the way, his last start against the Kings, he scored 30 fantasy points only in 20 minutes. And he had a game against the Lakers, April 24th, where he scored 37 DraftKings points. But in the other 14 of his starts this year, he's cracked 20 fantasy points once, I think it is, and it was 22. So on the whole, he's not been good as a starting player. More often than not, he starts and he scores somewhere in the neighborhood of 13, 14 fantasy points. And there's a couple of things here. Dwight Powell used to be a good player, and I definitely think he's been compromised after tearing his Achilles last year. The other thing also, the playing time is so difficult to predict, because they have so many guys to give minutes to. Like, Nicola Melli picks up minutes. We have Willie Cauley-Stein. Boban randomly pops up in the rotation sometimes. So I just have so little confidence in how many minutes to give anybody in that Dallas front court that I just end up projecting it to be really spread around, and that ultimately means I don't really get to any of them.
I think that's more than fair. It's such a volatile situation. That was the word that I was looking for. It's completely volatile. It's very, very risky. But again, if you're going to be playing 150 lineups and you have them in a couple, I wouldn't bat an eye at it, but not something I really want to tango with, especially considering he's actually getting ownership.
All right. So we do have another super chat there, but I want to hit on some of this news before we get too far past it. So once again, for the Indiana Pacers now, Jeremy Lamb is out, Jakar Sampson's out, Edmund Sumner's out, Malcolm Brogdon's out, Miles Turner's out. Some of those expected, but like Malcolm Brogdon, that was unexpected. And for the Detroit Pistons, Killian Hayes has now been ruled out. So let's start with the Indiana Pacers with news now that Brogdon is officially out. What do you make of that? And is there going to be anybody from Indiana that wasn't in your player pool that's going to make it in now?
I mean, Aaron Holiday is going to actually bump up quite a bit for me, I think. I don't know what to do with TJ McConnell ever. He's a disaster for me. I can't be on the right side of TJ McConnell to save my life. So don't listen to me about him. Listen to Greg, and then I'll do whatever Greg says, and hopefully that'll break the trend. But I don't think I'm probably going to be playing him at this point in time. So take that for what you will. But Aaron Holiday, I was going to get like 0% of before. I think I might get to a little bit here now. Sumner, Lamb, him out. Aaron Holiday played well in the 3 previous there. He's at 3,500. He was up to like 3,600, I believe, yesterday. Now down another $100. Like, not the most enthusiastic thing in the entire world, but did get the start. I will let that be known as well. I would want to be able to see and make sure that he's starting here again. But I think that there's like mid-high 20s upside for him there. And I'll probably get some shots on him. I was going to get to none before.
Yeah, so it's a weird case with Aaron Holiday. I'm currently assuming he's going to end up starting. He started last game. And like you said, he played 3 really good games in a row. Then he moved into the starting lineup and it all kind of fell apart for him. So the last 4 games overall for Aaron Holiday, 28.75 DraftKings points, 24.25, 28. And they go, hey, we're getting good stuff at Aaron Holiday. Let's move this guy into the starting lineup. And he goes out and lays an egg, scores 13.5 DraftKings points. So right now, though, I do expect him to start, given what his price tag is, at least on DraftKings. I think that he is a good play. His price on FanDuel is, let's see. Do you know it off the top of your head?
I'm not gonna be playing him on FanDuel. I don't really.
He's only up to 4,700. So
yeah,
that's
they're the easy pass.
Yeah, I wasn't exactly sure what his price tag was, but yeah, on DraftKings, where he's priced at 3,500, good enough value play. He's going to end up making it into some of my lineups. Nobody else to me is going to be significantly impacted. I think that on the high end, Domantas Sabonis, he's played some big games recently, but not going to be somebody that I really want to get to on the slate. There's other guys I prefer to pay up for. Karis LeVert, he's really expensive now. You asked the question about TJ McConnell before. I'm not going to get to him. Too expensive. And the minutes, even with like Malcolm Brogdon being out, this isn't new news. Malcolm Brogdon has missed the last few games, and the playing time generally hasn't been there for TJ McConnell. He had 1 game 2 games ago where he played 31 minutes and played really well, but before that, 22 minutes last game for TJ McConnell. Then it was the 31 minutes the game before. Then before that, 20 minutes, 22, 21. It's not enough playing time. If TJ McConnell was, like Aaron Holiday priced on DraftKings at 3,500, then yeah, I'd want to get to TJ McConnell, but not at his current salary. So the only guy this really materially impacts for me is going to be Aaron Holiday. And I don't think there's anybody else I'm really going to be getting to at a substantial amount from the Indiana Pacers. So let's move over to the Detroit Pistons now. And this team, let's read off their full injury report now, because that's right. We've got 28 minutes left in the show. We can take up just 10 of it by reading off the Pistons injury report here. But we have
Chapter 1.
Yeah. This is the prologue. We have Jeremy Grant out, Killian Hayes out, Dennis Smith Jr. out, Hamidou Diallo out, Mason Plumlee out, Rodney Magruder out, and Josh Jackson out because of a tooth thing or whatever. So now with that in mind, the Killian Hayes news doesn't impact Isaiah Stewart. But I think just because we're talking about the Pistons here, I think it's a fair talking about. Isaiah Stewart was absolutely terrific for a really long time whenever he started in place of Mason Plumlee. I don't know if he's hitting a rookie wall at some point this year. Maybe that's what the issue is. Maybe teams have seen some tendencies into Isaiah Stewart and they've seen ways to slow him down. But Isaiah Stewart has taken a Moses Brown-esque fall off and gone from a very good starter to a guy who he's got a little while since he had a good game now. I'm still getting to Isaiah Stewart for this slate, but not at the same rate I was a little bit earlier in the season. But what are you doing with Isaiah Stewart?
Yeah, same. I'm a little bit below actually on FanDuel here now. My last run, I think I'm kind of moving around some pieces here after some of the other news that we were getting. And then, yeah, on DraftKings, I'm having a tough time because I was going to play him here at center. Center, as we said before, isn't a great position by any means today. I mean, playing a lot of power forwards in that spot for the first time in a long time. But Isaiah Stewart coming in like semi like low teens ownership, like that's not really a problem. My problem is seeing 22 minutes for Jahlil Okafor that first game back here. He was gone. He was away from the team for 2 days. I was just counting the players trying to figure out where he was, if he was going to be around. But 22 minutes for him is kind of an issue. If Dwayne Casey's going to be bouncing around and giving him some shots there, That's not going to bode well for Isaiah Stewart either.
And then any of these guards, now that we have, now that we know that Killian Hayes isn't going to play. So we have Wayne Ellington. He's missed the last couple of games. Corey Joseph, he had a bunch of big games last time we had seen him play, but obviously his appearances in the starting lineup have been spotty a little recently. But I expect most of the guard minutes to be handled by Frank Jackson and Corey Joseph tonight. Do you think you're going to be getting exposure to either of those guys?
Yeah, left ankle inflammation was his issue. I'm not sure how much of that / rest could probably go in the category for that injury as well. I'm going to get to a little Corey Joseph. I think he makes a decent enough play. Like I think on FanDuel under 5K, I would much rather play him than Aaron Holiday. I know they're at different positions. Aaron Holiday is a shooting guard over there, but under 5K, I might take a couple shots there. DraftKings as well, you can play him at shooting guard, so that doesn't bother me a ton. But Saben Lee is going to be the guy, 3,400, just cheap, just sitting there cheap. Frank Jackson, I'm not sure how those minutes are gonna shake out, but Saben Lee's been okay, not fantastic. Low 20s minutes there, high teens, I guess, in the last couple there. Maybe taking a couple shots there because Killian Hayes, he'd be the direct point guard backup here, but I'm assuming Corey Joseph ends up in that starting lineup, and maybe I'll get to a couple shares of him. And Wayne Ellington, I have no idea what to expect here. I mean, the last time we saw him was he played on the 26th. He played just short of 23 minutes. At 3K, maybe get a tiny bit, but I can't see him getting over 23 minutes again tonight. What say you?
Yeah, I don't think the playing time is going to be there enough for him. So Saben Lee's box scores. And also keep in mind, even though we have Killian Hayes out, we have Wayne Ellington in the mix now. We have Corey Joseph in the mix now. And these are guys who have missed time recently. So Saben Lee, while the guys who are in are different, it's still kind of the same amount of players he's competing with for playing time. And Saben Lee isn't the best points per minute fantasy producer in the world. And over the last 4 games, he's played 18 minutes, 16 minutes, 20 minutes, and 19 minutes. So with that in mind, it's hard for me to think that even if he gets over 20 minutes, it's probably not going to be substantially over 20. So somebody who I think becomes a much better play than him now in the same price range on DraftKings at least is Aaron Holiday, because this is somebody who I feel much more comfortable about, number one, the minutes floor, but then the minutes ceiling. So Aaron Holiday is somebody I think has a much more substantial upside than Saben Lee, and it would have to take the Pistons just totally retooling their starting lineup in the rotation for me to see Saben Lee getting a substantial amount of playing time.
Yeah, 195 lineups. I just got 3% Saben Lee in my last run, and that was updating his minutes. So I just have him in at 19 minutes. He's not gonna change meaningfully for me. I gotta actually retool Corey Joseph here because I think I was just giving him too many minutes.
Yeah, I'm not really getting to Corey Joseph. I'm getting to a little bit of Frank Jackson, but nobody from the Pistons is all that important of a play to me other than Sekou Doumbouya. Sekou is somebody who, once again, at least this is another DraftKings specific play. FanDuel is a little more expensive, but 3,500 for Sekou on DK. He's somebody else. Last 4 games for him. 29 minutes, 27 minutes, 31 minutes, 34 minutes. So him at 3,500 on DraftKings, to me, I think that he's one of the better value options on DraftKings right now, projected for, actually, let me refresh. We probably have new owners.
Just short of 25%. Just short of 25% right now. And
yeah.
I'm over the field on that too.
Yeah, I am over the field on 25%. So Sekou, by the way, somebody who I know that somebody asked the FanDuel question earlier, and I hesitate to throw out the word lock, but I think for cash games, play Sekou.
All right, hang on one second. So yesterday I jumped in for you, and we got that Goga news yesterday, and we've had a lot of people ask about Goga, and I'll get your take on it here too. He ended up playing 21 minutes, got 20 DK fantasy points. Wouldn't have been the worst thing in the entire world, but on that slate, absolutely you didn't need to go there. I got him in like 1 or 2 lineups, I think, is where I ended up landing on him. We ended up having him projected around 13, and that terrified the crap out of both Josh and I, and we kind of freaked out. Look at our update to Saben Lee and let me know if there's any different opinion that you have on him, because I did not expect for him to be jumping up this meaningfully. I just updated his minutes to 21. I went up to 21 from the 20 that I had, and I'm getting just an irrational amount of him. Take a look at it.
All right. So by the way, I'll just say for me on Saben Lee, I have him, and here's his full season rates also for Saben Lee. Saben Lee for the season is playing 15.4 minutes per game and scoring 14.23 DraftKings points. So somebody who we expect is going to score less than a fantasy point per minute. I gave him 18 minutes today. So with that in mind, I have him a little over 16 fantasy points. So for me, somebody who I am not getting to, Why don't you just read off, because I don't have it in front of me. What is the projection you're talking about?
Okay, so Saban Lee, we have him in now for 21 minutes here. I think it's going to jump up. Those minutes are going to jump up. But right now coming in, projection jumped up to 26 here over at Awesemo.
In 21 minutes?
I think the minutes are going to get updated here. I don't think the minutes have. I think the projections got updated before the minutes did. Because at 21 and a half, obviously, I don't think we're projecting him to be like a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy. But yeah, that kind of freaked me out here. He took a quick spike there because there's a lot of news that comes in here before lock. I think all the guys behind the scenes are just doing an unbelievable job at being able to react to this news as quickly as what they do to make sure that it's accurate, that it's helpful. But there's back-to-back days now that I've been on a show where something was just jarring to me and didn't make sense. Goga yesterday, I thought was going to play around 24 minutes. He only ended up getting to like 21. It was just short of 21 that he got to. And I'm glad that I wasn't playing him. So I think that having a low projection on him definitely helped. But this is freaking me out a little bit on Saban Lee, and I'm trying to figure out what my rates are here that I'm missing on this. But definitely took a gigantic spike up here at Awesemo.
I mean, if he starts, sure, but or else I think Frank Jackson's getting minutes. I think Corey Joseph's getting minutes. Saban Lee himself is going to get minutes. I think Wayne Ellington gets minutes, and the minutes just haven't been there for Saban Lee. So hey, maybe I'm wrong, but I can't remember the last time I played Saban Lee, and I'm kind of cool with that right now.
Yeah.
So when is the last time?
So I just jumped over to the boom bust. So I jumped up over to the boom bust tool as well. He's coming around 35% in the optimal lineup right now. Coming in with 19.5 leverage, coming in at 15%. I mean, that's this is a spicy meatball right now. That's
all right. When do you think is the last time Saban Lee scored over 25 fantasy points?
It's probably been like 2 months.
Let's see. It was March 29th. And by the way, he was starting then.
Okay.
The time before then he scored over 25 fantasy points was a game where he just got a bunch of garbage time against the Toronto Raptors, ended up scoring 36 fantasy points, just 21 minutes. And that was also a game that was decided by 24 points. Actually, a game the Pistons beat the Raptors by 24 points. He got extended minutes.
I remember that game. That was bonkers. Chris Boucher, I think, went off too, but whatever.
He had a run in February where he produced good fantasy value for a few games. But I don't know. To me, there's better value plays. I'd rather play Aaron Holiday for a similar price.
Agreed.
All right. Super chat here from our guy, James Kennan. He's saying, who will absolutely be in the winning lineup on DraftKings at a salary between $5,800 and $6,200. Come on, guys. Josh never fails me. A lot of pressure here, Eric. So let me pull this up. This is a very specific price point, and I don't think he specified a position. It could be anywhere. So utility guy, $5,800 to $6,200. Who do you have as the best overall play in that price range?
At which range? Sorry, one more time.
It is from $5,800 to $6,200.
On DraftKings.
Yes, DraftKings. So I assume it's utility.
I mean, I have a lot of Kyle Anderson right now. I think tournaments, I like under 10% Kyle Anderson on DraftKings. Let's see, anybody else here in this price range that I'm getting to meaningfully. I'm lighter on Sadiq Bey. I think I'd already talked about that. I'm around 10%, so I'm below the field there. But he's definitely a player that can catch fire and carry a high ceiling. I refuse to play TJ McConnell, so I'll go with with Kyle Anderson there.
It is Darius Bazley for me. He is right at 6,200, and Bazley I project for over 30 fantasy points today. And if you look at his last handful of games, he's somebody who's played pretty well for the Thunder. One of their only real consistent players. Darius Bazley over the last couple of games, 34 fantasy points, 43 fantasy points. I think he's now scored over 34 fantasy points in something like 7 of his last 10 games. So Bazley to me would be the choice in that price range. So that is my guy. Let's see. Are there any other super chats that I think it looks like there's one here. Okay, here we go. From Ernest Davis on DraftKings. Goga Bitadze or Brad Wanamaker? That is going to be Wanamaker for me.
Wanamaker for me too.
Do you have any exposure to Goga?
Yeah, I do have a little bit again today. I just kind of look at it and I think that there's an opportunity for 23, 24 minutes from him. And at a 1.15 DraftKings points per minute player on the season, they're going to get out there and have him push. I didn't actually see what that altercation was. I saw some kind of like an altercation he had with an assistant coach yesterday, if I read that correctly on Twitter. They got in some kind of a spatting match, and Goga got fined, and his assistant got suspended for the game today, if I saw that correctly. But yeah, I think Goga should be playing just low 20s minutes in any capacity. Awesemo's got him in for 19.5 right now. That looks a little bit better than the 13 yesterday that really kind of was jarring to me. But I think Goga, not an important part of this slate by any means whatsoever. But if you got to like 1 or 2 shares in 150, I wouldn't bat an eye at that either.
So I also have some exposure to Goga, nothing like crazy or anything like that. But I mean, to me, somebody, good points per minute fantasy producer. Also, center is not the most loaded spot today. So Goga's in a few lineups for me, just given what his price point is and his point per minute production. I'm fine with him. That also enables me to, be able to pay up for all the guys I want to pay up for today. The Raptors guys, Steph Curry, Russell Westbrook. So small amount of exposure to me for Goga Bitadze. And let's see, was there another super chat there, or that was just the one I answered? Yes. By the way, also on Brad Wanamaker, my ownership to him did come down a little bit once all of the Pacers guys got rolled out, because then once Aaron Holiday becomes a viable play, Aaron Holiday, much like I prefer Aaron Holiday to Saban Lee, I prefer Aaron Holiday to Brad Wanamaker also. So Brad Wanamaker now somebody who not really getting a ton of exposure to. All right. We never really talked about the guards. I mean, we talked about the guards. We haven't really talked about the forwards all that much. Something I wanted to circle back and ask you about is you had mentioned Andrew Wiggins before and that you like him a decent amount. So in comparison to some of the other Warriors guys we've talked about on the slate, how much do you prefer Wiggins? Is Wiggins your most rostered Warriors player?
No, he's not. On FanDuel, I think it's going to be different on the two sites. So Steph Curry really makes sense on that site as well over on FanDuel, as does Andrew Wiggins. I'm trying not to get crazy. I'm not super worried. They're implied for 120 Vegas total. Like hard to really think that if they do blow them out, that neither Steph nor Wiggins gets there just by going absolutely bonkers there. And obviously Steph, the major proponent there, but shooting guard is not my favorite position on a FanDuel either. I really do think that I really think I might actually get to a share or two of Aaron Holiday here. Well, no, I won't. Nope, I just ran it. I lied. I just don't like the shooting guard position here other than Fred VanVleet. He was by far my highest owned player over on FanDuel and probably still will be, even after all of this news. Andrew Wiggins, though, just felt like an easy plug and play on that next spot because playing a chalky D'Anthony Melton over there doesn't really feel right to me. Bradley Beal, I know that he's got a ceiling sitting there somewhere. We saw 52.3, which was the first time he had gone for over 45 in his last 6 or 5 games there. So that was nice to see that he's starting to get some kind of a spike to other peripheral stats, not just shooting. But Bradley Beal, all right, but not super enthusiastic. You got to save a little money somewhere. And so VanVleet and Wiggins, it's kind of a result of kind of the slate over on FanDuel. On DraftKings, though, 7,100 coming in right at 20%. I'm at the field, maybe a tiny bit over. Yeah, I'm 21%. So I like getting to him there as well. 7,100. There's a ceiling there. Been playing pretty well 2 ways of late, but high 30s minutes against a really bad OKC team at 0.96 fantasy points per minute. I'm willing to take some shots on it.
All right, and a forward option here also. I think he's eligible at guard and shooting guard and small forward on DraftKings. Yes, he is. So Caleb Martin, not Cody Martin. Cody Martin's out. I don't even know which one's the better of the Martin brothers. Like I just kind of have the rates there, and it's like, oh, this is the one that's projected higher. I get them.
Not Caleb Martin.
Yeah, I get them confused all the time. But thankfully, when the optimizer runs it, it gives me the right one. But anyway, for today, Caleb Martin 3,900. We did get a question from Morgan2424 in our premium Slack chat. He's asking, this is, I assume, a DraftKings related question because I'm pretty sure Morgan plays on DK, but what do you make of Caleb Martin on today's slate? So I'll answer first and I'll throw it to you, Eric. But Caleb Martin's somebody who earlier in the day I was looking at as a pretty good value play with just all the guys that are out for the Hornets. But now as the day has gone on, like Malachi Flynn's a guy having some exposure to. Aaron Holiday, we talked about him before. There's all these value plays that are opening up that now Caleb Martin's just somebody who like, hey, if he makes it into a couple lineups here and there, I don't have an issue with that. But to me, he's 3,900 when he projects very similarly to a bunch of guys who are, like 35 to 3,300. So Caleb Martin, to me, very, very low priority play. Do you feel any differently than that?
Nope, right there with you. We've had enough stuff. I think Desmond Bane, that's the other guy we probably got to talk about here at some point in time, but definitely getting to more Desmond Bane than the field at 3,600. That's kind of a spot that I'm really kind of targeting. I think between him and Demboya, they do enough for me that I don't need to go too crazy on anybody else down underneath 35, and putting Aaron Holiday in that bucket as well. Desmond Bane, Aaron Holiday, Sekou Demboya, kind of rotating, mixing and matching a lot of my 150 stuff with those guys.
All right. We have a question here from Neko GZZ. It's a super chat. He's asking GTA. So I assume that's Juan Toscano Anderson or Moses Brown. So I assume that's going to be a DraftKings related question. Personally, I don't think I have exposure to either of those guys. I do not. Do you have exposure?
2% Moses Brown, if that counts for anything. I have no Juan Toscano Anderson, 0%.
What is the price point on these guys? Maybe there's somebody in that price range that I prefer more than both of them that we could give out. So Moses Brown is 4,800. So I assume Juan Toscano Anderson is about the same. Yeah, they're both 4,800. So is there somebody 4,800 or cheaper that you would think is a better play than Moses Brown or Juan Toscano Anderson that we could give out to our friend here, Neko GZZ?
That's a specific friend name. I love that. Let's go. I would rather take shots on Daniel Gafford. I know he's 4,600. If those minutes ever get there, because he's very, very good. Scott Brooks did say yesterday afterwards that he was just like, yeah, I need to probably play him more. So that is something in the positive category. I don't know if he necessarily phrased it like that, but that was basically my interpretation of it. I think if Daniel Gafford at 4,600 were to get any kind of a minute spike, I would rather go to take some shots on him getting to low 20s minutes and just going completely nuts. Isaiah Roby isn't the worst thing either, but I don't necessarily want to do that at 4,500. Just Juan Toscano Anderson makes no sense for me on this slate. 4,800, you can go way down and get way more security, way more minutes elsewhere. I would rather take shots at 4,700 on Danilo Gallinari. We've seen a ceiling for him the last two. Still maintains a pretty low price tag. Played 32 minutes against Portland, 24 against Phoenix, 50.5 DraftKings points. Like, there's a ceiling that exists there. Juan Toscano Anderson, you're basically saying, one, I need a blowout. Two, low, like even in high 20s minutes, he's not going to get there for you. So pass for me.
So here's my answer in that price range. It's a little bit cheaper, but I don't mind leaving the $500 on the table for him. Is Malachi Flynn. I think that he's another guy who he's been absolute dog shit over the last couple of games. Like, things have not gone well for Malachi Flynn. So we talked about a rookie wall that has hit Isaiah Stewart. The rookie wall is hitting Malachi Flynn over the head right now, because Malachi Flynn, who was terrific for a little while, his last couple of games, let me pull it up. He's combined for something like 6 fantasy points in his last couple of games. No, it's not great because he's not priced at 200. He has, and by the way, one of those games was a start against the Lakers, and he played 20 minutes in that game and scored 2.25 DraftKings points. Then last time out against the Clippers, 13 minutes, scores 4.5 DraftKings points. For tonight, we do have no Kyle Lowry in the starting lineup, so I assume that means Malachi Flynn starts in his place. Gary Trent Jr. is coming back, although I expect he's going to be somewhat limited. And then obviously we still have OG Anunoby's out, also Yuta Watanabe's out. So I think that Malachi Flynn's going to start. I know that his last start went poorly. His last couple of games haven't been good, but overall for the season, 9 starts for Malachi Flynn, 33 minutes per game, 29.67 DraftKings points. So Malachi Flynn, I think the field is a little scared away based on his recent performances, because, 4,300 Malachi Flynn, if this was even a week ago, like, he would be like 50, 60% owned, but currently only 17.6% ownership projection on DraftKings in our last run. So he's somebody I'm overweight to the field on. How do you feel about Flynn today?
Not great, but I have some. I have 20%. I capped it. I had him way too high of a projection, because I think it had to do more with some of the results we had previously for him. If you're plugging him in, there was no way that he wasn't going to pop for you if you just went by current rates. But the last couple, as you said, just absolute garbage. Not a guy that would look that fantastic whatsoever. Looking around the industry and other places, it looks like he is popping quite a bit. So I think the ownership's going to still be there. But 4,300, you can't tell me that he doesn't have a ceiling at that price tag. We've seen it multiple times here already. They have other pieces that they've been willing to play out there. Watanabe got a start last time out, but he's out today. I think that that's a helpful thing, not just Kyle Lowry being out, but Malachi Flynn should have some opportunity there today, upside of low 30s minutes. So yeah, I'm happy to take some shots there. So I capped him at 20%, and that's just going to kind of be my stand on him today.
All right. A bunch of super chats get caught up on here from Jeff Mitsef. This is for Kermit the Chalk. That would be you.
Dear
Mr.
God,
Lindquist.
that's the best one yet. That's Well done. I'm actually golf clap.
You're gonna feel less good about it when you hear the question. Better play on FanDuel, Jeff Green or Blake Griffin? Still clap for the question.
I'm taking it away. That's me going back in time and taking away the golf clap. Let's go. Dear God. I mean, Jeff Green, I've been playing a little bit just to take GPP shots on. I think he's got the higher ceiling. Hasn't been as great the last two, but gets the minutes bump over Blake Griffin. Definitely more minutes. I think can get hot from three. And so I'll say Jeff Green.
All right. I don't like either of them today.
Yeah, don't play either.
Jeff Green, if I'm absolutely forced to choose. From Noah Zakumis here, he is asking FanDuel GPP, Dorian Finney-Smith or Caleb Martin. That is Dorian Finney-Smith for me. How about for you?
Same.
All right. And then from Opposite Site XO, he's asking DK, favorite play in either of the two late games. So let me look at the timing of the games because I don't usually think of the games in terms of when they're being played. It's Steph Curry because the Warriors playing one of the last two games.
Steph Curry, definitely.
All right, that answers that one. And then I think there was a couple more to hit also. Let's see. I'm almost positive there was one more that we just got. It's always so hard. The chat moves so fast and they move. Oh, here it was. All right. Dean. He was asking us for DraftKings single entry. Pick two of these players. This is a pretty easy one for me. Sekou, Bane, and then Aaron Holiday. Bane is officially starting for the Grizzlies. I was expecting that to be the case all day. That didn't really change anything for me. Sekou and Aaron Holiday over Bane pretty easily for me.
Same.
All right. So I'm pretty sure that gets us caught up on all of the super chats. So I'm just going to upload in my final lineups here. Is there anybody you are getting exposure to that maybe you weren't expecting to, or is looking much different than what you thought it might in your final
Greg,
run?
I don't know. We have 5 minutes here, and I'm still trying to figure out Saban Lee. That's literally all I think I've been doing for the last 10 minutes is figuring out what I want to do with that cat because, putting him in for 24 minutes. I mean, if I put him in for 22, I was getting him around like 60% of my lineups. I put him back down to like 20. He comes in like 4%. Like he is such a volatile player just based on what I get those minutes to. And, 24 projection, 3,400, looking at the boom bust tool there a second ago. He just was popping so meaningfully that I think I got to get to a little bit. I think I'm going to just cap him at 20 as well. That kind of feels like the right thing to do on a show. Just cap him at 20. I'll get to a little bit here, but I would be very remiss if I didn't have any. And he was just standing out so meaningfully in our projections.
Yeah, well, he is somebody who is not quite making it into my lineups, but what would make me change if he ends up starting, right? So we have that's not one of the first games of Slate that locks, right? That is an 8:00 start time. So that is something that I might have to change depending on what the Pistons starting lineup is. Right now, I think he comes off the bench and plays somewhere in the neighborhood of 18 to 20 minutes. And to me, that doesn't give him a substantial enough upside to really want to get to him. But it could change. Like I said, if we find out he's starting, and we might find out when he's starting, Eric, is somewhere in between the 7 and 7:30 mark when you and I are doing the Jock Market show, which is also all the more reason for people to stick around is whether you're playing on Jock Market, you want to bid the IPO prices against Eric and I, that's all well and fine. But also, if you just play on FanDuel and DraftKings, you want to get our takes on any news that comes out after lock. That's also stuff that Eric and I are going to be hitting on because there's almost always news that comes out in the 7 to 7:30 block afterwards. So, okay, more super chats to hit now. And let's see. From Chief Big Wave, I think it's really hard to actually pronounce it how it's spelled.
Have you ever read? That was special, that one.
No, because he spells it B1G4VE.
All right.
So,
didn't mean to call you out. I apologize. I rescind it.
So that's why I don't know how do we mix the letters and the numbers there. But anyway, he's asking Len or Okafor on DraftKings. Neither for me.
Neither.
If you have to, because you got 90 seconds until lock, then I guess Jahlil Okafor played minutes last game. So maybe he plays those minutes again and that works out. But other than that, I mean, I can't really say to change your entire lineup when we have like, and by the way, by the time he gets this,
maybe I win the Powerball, same thing. Maybe I win that too.
The slate could already be locked by the time that he reads me answer this one anyway. And then here from Charles, he's asking one more for a showdown game. If I could shove in Levine and put Biyombo, is that decent? I have LaMelo, Vucevic, and McDaniels. For a single game contest, I don't have an issue with Bismack Biyombo.
I don't have an issue with him either.
Okay.
Yeah. I had a major issue with him the other day because he was like crazy. Well, he was first of all jumping up to like 25%. Then he came down to 15. I think that's kind of where he closed at. And I had like 1% and it was beautiful.
All right. So that is just about going to take us until lock, but we have a few seconds here until we lock. And then once again, guys, we're going to be doing the Jock Market show afterwards. Eric, who is most likely to make or break you tonight, and why is it Saban Lee?
Oh, it's not Saban Lee. I like preemptively made sure that would not happen to me, because before he was like, if you put him at 24 minutes, he was just jumping up in so many lineups for me. The guy most likely to make or break me, I mean, does Russell Westbrook count if you have him in like almost everything? Fred VanVleet on FanDuel would absolutely break me as well. And then center position, Kevon Looney could just murder me if he goes off.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, like, could Russell Westbrook really kill anybody at this point? Like, we've played him basically heavily every slate for forever now. He's in 80% of my lineups, but he never has bad games. Here's he's scored under 50 fantasy points once since. Oh, geez.
I have 79%, so I'm below the field probably.
So he had the one game where he hurt his ankle, and that was a little wonky. Before then, the actual last game he scored below 50, and this one's a little wonky too. March 23rd against the New York Knicks, a game that was decided by 28 points, and he played limited minutes. So he scored under 50 in that one. The last time he played like a full game, nothing wonky, no injury, no foul trouble, no blowout, where he scored under 50 fantasy points, we have to go back to February 28th against the Boston Celtics. He scored a 47.25 DraftKings points. That's the last legitimate game where there's no asterisks, just Russell Westbrook went out and played poorly.
It's just stupid.
Yeah,
it's just stupid.
He's not going to break us tonight. I'm pretty sure that it's not going to be what ends me. And if it is, whatever. That would be the first time in like 3 months it's happened. So no regrets. But with that said, guys, we are at lock. And are Eric and I going anywhere? Of course not, because we've got the Jock Market show to do. So, guys, by the way, did the sound effect just play? I like faintly heard it in the background, but I couldn't tell if it. Jordan, give me a thumbs up.
There it is. Oh.
That sounded like it didn't
kind
go
of
well. But all right, guys. So what is Jock Market? This is not the standard way to play DFS. It's a little bit different. We're bidding on players as if they are stocks. So we're going to be bidding on them in the IPO period. By the way, the IPO period on Jock Market ends at 7:30, so 7:30 Eastern time. So Eric and I, for the next 29 minutes, are going to be placing bids. If you guys want to play along in the YouTube chat or in our Awesemo Premium Slack chat, go download the Jock Market app, and you could be bidding on players against Eric and I, which always goes well for Eric and I. We're trying to do a show. We're giving out the players that we're bidding on, and instantly we get outbid. And also, if you guys want to go ahead and make a deposit, use the promo code Awesemo, and you get a $20 bonus on your first deposit. Also, something else that's really nice is, hey, I wouldn't know the fair amount to bid on these players in the IPO period, but no worry there, because if you go to awesemo.com, we do have projections up, and they are free for the fair Jock Market IPO prices. So with that in mind, Eric, let's dig into this. Did you place any wagers or any bids, I'll say, on anybody in the Jock Market before we started?
No, I didn't, but I was considering betting $24.98 on Russell Westbrook to lock in my 2-cent margin on him tonight. I feel like that's the optimal way to go. No, don't do that, but wouldn't blame you. Why not? Looking around here a little bit. So I looked at the projections a little bit beforehand. I was trying to think about guys that could possibly pass Russell Westbrook, and just kind of being very concerned about like where they're going to be going as we get closer to lock. Steph Curry actually coming up with a higher IPO price than Russell Westbrook, as does Luka Doncic, which I thought was just really, really crazy, because I don't think we're going to see that be reflected by the bidding. I think by far Russell Westbrook will go number one and be the most expensive player. So I'm going to be waiting here as we get closer to lock and see what Steph and Luka get to, and make sure that I get a couple shares of each of them.
Yeah. So for me, it's just going to depend on where the bidding ends up coming to, right? And by the way, I'm surprised. So in our IPO projections, and one thing that makes Russell Westbrook a vastly different play on somewhere like DraftKings as compared to Jock Market is Jock Market, you get negative points for a missed shot. And you know, it's one thing Russell Westbrook does a lot is miss shots. So that is something that impacts his real life value, doesn't impact his value on DraftKings, impacts his value on Jock Market. So with that in mind, the fair IPO projections we have for the top guys right now, Steph Curry, the highest fair IPO price, $16.70. Luka Doncic, $16.50. Russell Westbrook, $16.40. So we're not looking at a big gap between these guys, but just given the amount of shots that Russell Westbrook misses, I think that's about fair for the way the scoring works on Jock Market. So I'm going to look at this right now and see where the bidding is at. So of these guys, you know who I'm most interested in? Steph Curry, because nobody's bid on him yet. He right now is a IPO price of $1. So somebody I'm very comfortable bidding more than $1 for is Steph Curry.
Yeah, he was at $1. I just bid 8 on him. So I just kind of made the assumption that was kind of going to be the increase that we saw there. Just kind of get the bidding going, seeing where he's going to fall in. Because if $1.10 Steph Curry is something you want to be invested in. I'll just throw that out there. Hot take.
Yeah.
Super hot
that is,
take from Chalk Kent.
I also have some shares of Steph Curry right now. And then, I mean, like Luka Doncic right now, also much too cheap with the fair IPO bidding right now at $9.89. Let's see. What are some of the other guys who are standing out? I'm just looking at right now all the guys who are at $1 that should be for more than $1, which is pretty much anybody towards the top here that haven't been bid on yet. Domantas Sabonis, only $1. Pascal Siakam, $1. Fred VanVleet, $1. A lot of these guys should be getting bid for much more than that. So let's see. If you had to bid on one of these guys, let's talk about the Raptors guys, because we like them a bunch for DFS. But Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, and where's Malachi Flynn at in our IPO projections? Only for $1.10. So maybe not as much him. But if you had to place a bid on Pascal Siakam or Fred VanVleet, who are you going with?
I'm going to go Fred VanVleet, I think, on pretty much everything today. Just that shooting guard spot. Well, on DraftKings FanDuel, I think just shooting guard wasn't my favorite spot to be filling out. And he just made it way too easy. Crazy amount of ceiling that we saw last time out. Pascal Siakam, the game before that against the Lakers, we saw his ceiling. I still think Fred VanVleet's just a little bit higher. We saw that previous to his injuries, that he was just kind of eviscerating. Like he had so many ceiling games. He's the guy that between the two of them, I really think could go out and like win you the slate, get you the $25 spot. If you wanted to go Siakam, I can't poke that many holes in it, but Gafford's actually been pretty decent defensively. Washington's been better on the defensive end of late. I would say Fred VanVleet is kind of the guy that could go out, just heat check it and get really hot and go nuts. But I say that knowing full well that Pascal did it 2 games ago.
Yeah, and by the way, so something right here of, let's see, is that, we just got a starting lineup for the Toronto Raptors. This is going to move a lot of stuff around. This is very big news, actually. Toronto Raptors starting lineup: Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., Stanley Johnson, Pascal Siakam, Khem Birch. No Malachi Flynn in the starting lineup. Yep. Quick reaction to that news.
Well, so, I mean, Malachi Flynn, I wasn't sure that he was going to start. They kind of shown apprehension to start him when either one of Lowry or VanVleet was out. We saw that starting lineup. Let's see. Malachi Flynn he started against the Lakers, but he didn't start in that Clippers game. They ended up opting to go Watanabe, and Watanabe actually played pretty well. Well, now it's Stanley Johnson getting plugged alongside him here. I'm probably going to be light. I'm going to be lighter than I was before. I think he was already not somebody that was popping up at Awesemo, and we were kind of bucking the trend a little bit by getting up to like 15-20%. But that was hoping that he was going to start a little bit. But that's why God invented late swap, and so we have no problem going over there. I'm going to cap him at 3% here and see what ends up popping up for me. But I'm guessing I'm going to get to about 0 now.
Yeah, I am going to have very, very limited amount of Malachi Flynn now. He was somebody who I thought he was going to start. Not as much now, but I mean, for sure, I'm going
now
to be...
that the starting lineup's out, you don't think he's going to start?
Oh, no.
Wow.
I mean, which by the way, it wouldn't even be the first time, especially not at this point of the year.
Honestly, that's not the worst take. Honestly, like you're probably right about that. Like 25% of the time.
Gary Trent Jr. is at 5,000. I think that he's playable now on DraftKings. Stanley Johnson, though, he's the big gainer here. I did not know what they were going to do on the wings for today. Stanley Johnson, I thought there was a chance he could start. Now he's a very, very good value play.
Yep, same. He's 3K. He's 3K. He was already popping up for me, getting 25 minutes. If I put him at 30, I'm going to get him in just about everything.
Yeah, Stanley Johnson, which, by the way, also before we were talking about how difficult the small forward position is to fill on FanDuel, and even before I'd said that Stanley Johnson was the small forward I like the most, and now just that, really just confirmation bias. I already liked him before, and now as much as you could like Stanley Johnson, I somehow like him more than as much as I liked him before, which is a very uncomfortable feeling.
I wish this news. So let's look at Jock Market here too. So don't bid on Malachi Flynn. Stanley Johnson's $1. I would have more than $1 on Stanley Johnson playing 30 minutes. Again, somebody who has spiked usage games where he's gone out and actually chucked from time to time. Not that it happens that frequently, but there's upside for him to make a big number, a big jump up the board in 30, 32 minutes.
Yeah, I am going to see. Let's see if we have updated IPO pricing for Jock Market. See if Stanley Johnson has moved at all, because he is somebody now that I do think warrants at least being bid on more than $1, but probably not somebody who would be, not somebody I'd go bid, like $3 or $4 on or something like that. And that's also something that's a little bit different about Jock Market versus, FanDuel or DraftKings. We look at right now, like the fair IPO pricing of somebody like let's see, who's played well recently that doesn't have all that high. Okay, so like Gary Trent Jr., for instance, we currently have a fair IPO price of him for $2.40. And Gary Trent Jr., I think we both agree, better expectations from a fantasy perspective than Stanley Johnson. So generally, these value guys who will pop up in a lot of my lineups on DraftKings doesn't really necessarily make them guys that I want to bid on or make them good guys to try to get exposure to on Jock Market.
Agreed. Yeah, I think getting to him was already an okay thing to do at the shooting guard position. I think I had out of my lineup allocation over on FanDuel. Yeah, I was getting to 5% Gary Trent already. I mean, that's how much more would you be popping in here for this news now that he's starting? I think it just adds so much more security to the minutes. And, on Jock Market, I'd be surprised if he got up over $2.40 in the next 20 minutes. Well, I say that now, and now because I put it out into the world, there's no way that that's going to be the case. But I would definitely invest at him at $2.40 at this point in time.
So here's something else that I think is kind of curious. Have you updated lineups yet for the Raptors starting lineup?
Yeah.
Which other players? So I assume, I'm just getting to all the Stanley Johnson now, but has that materially changed any of the other exposures for players you're getting to on this slate?
I'm getting more Kem Birch now at center over on DraftKings. I think that went up 4%. Not crazy by any means, but I don't have any Hood. I have 0% Bembry. I just sorted here by the team. No Jalen Harris. Gary Trent, I'm getting obviously much more of. Stanley Johnson, I've got as my highest owned value piece. I like him a little bit more than I like Demboya at this point in time. That's really the big deal for me, is that I feel it's so much easier for me to go to a true 3K guy that I have some kind of form of confidence is going to get high 20s minutes, as opposed to playing Sekou Demboya in bulk, who's already chalky. I would rather double my ownership to Stanley Johnson than stay flat on Sekou.
So here's what has changed for me. I'm getting to more of Steph Curry, and I'm getting to more of Trae Young, because just by being cheaper at the forward position, I have more money to spend up elsewhere. And I think it just makes sense to get to those high-end guards at a higher clip. So more Stanley Johnson to me means more Trae Young and more Steph Curry.
Siakam should go off. It's a trick. Don't do it. What do we say about Siakam? We love Siakam.
Yeah, I like Siakam.
Why would we not love Siakam? Yeah, definitely still a thing.
All right. Arkathelza just left us a super chat. He's saying, and by the way, one more Raptors question, because somebody asked in the YouTube chat, and I actually think it's an interesting talking point. But Arkathelza is saying, thoughts on Moses Brown over Gafford on DraftKings? Personally, I don't really like either of them all that much. So I know that Scotty Brooks did yesterday that Daniel Gafford deserves more playing time, but he's been the coach all along, and he's never given him the playing time. And it's not all of a sudden there's a different decision maker in the mix. If I had to roster Daniel Gafford or Moses Brown, I would go with Gafford. But at this point in time, I don't really have exposure to either of those guys, just because there's a lot better value plays, and my lineups for the millionth time are setting up as stars and scrubs. So that's, to me, the by far optimal way to build lineups at this time of the season. And that's going to be the case again today. So kind of these centers who do have some upside, but I'm not secure about their minutes, I'd rather go elsewhere.
So I think he was saying it in relation. We got a super chat asking us if there was somebody else that we would prefer around Moses Brown at 4,800 over on DraftKings. And we said, well, you could play Gafford. But we said that with the caveat in the front of it that we didn't want to play either of them. If you had to play somebody like Gafford, if you were to get low 20s minutes, could win you a tournament. Absolutely. But the number of times that he does that based on what the track record of getting his opportunity has been here of late is just so low. And so it's a dart. Yeah. That if you want to take, I said, if you had 150 lineups and you got to a couple shares of Gafford, I wouldn't bat an eye at it. But do you really want to be doing that on a slate where there's such more secure value now? And there's other places, not that I love centers. So if you want to take your shots at center, go ahead. But Moses Brown, I think, probably has a little bit more minute security than Gafford and has gone out there and gone complete Moses Malone a couple times previously, not of late for sure. But it's all been because of minutes here. I think I would probably take a couple more shots on Moses Brown as a result, but Gafford for sure, give him 20 minutes and you would want him.
All right, more news here and another super chat. Starting lineup for the Dallas Mavericks. It is Luka Doncic, no surprise. Josh Richardson, no surprise. Tim Hardaway Jr., no surprise. Dorian Finney-Smith, no surprise. But starting at center, Willie Cauley-Stein. That is a very good value play that I assume is going to go somewhat overlooked because that game starts in 16 minutes. So Willie Cauley-Stein, who is he even, let's see, is he biddable on Jock Market?
He's 3K. Okay, so he started the last game and played 18 minutes. He was not in foul trouble at any point of that entire game. It was, they ended up being Miami by 14. Powell ended up getting a lot of those minutes towards the end. It did get a little wonky towards the end, so maybe that's why the minutes kind of skewed towards Powell there. And then Powell got those 2 quick fouls in the fourth quarter. I spent way too much time looking at the center rotation yesterday. It was just I didn't know what else to do with my time, so that's kind of what I chose to do. Cauley-Stein, though, he freaks me out a lot. 3K, I could see this going. Just temper your expectations. I wouldn't go nuts with him. I'm going to get to a little bit here too. I was already getting to a little bit, assuming that he was going to get the starting nod, but they've been very volatile with both these guys. So this isn't like a 30%, 40% of your lineups kind of play. Like I would still kind of keep caution up on him.
Yeah, so I just gave Willie Cauley-Stein 22 minutes. And I mean, he's a good enough fantasy producer that makes him that gives him an okay projection. And now that gets him into 15% of my lineups. So at the very least, like we talked about Goga before, and I'd rather roster Willie Cauley-Stein than Goga Bitadze.
Absolutely.
Overall for the season, Willie Cauley-Stein has made 12 starts. He averages 19.31 DraftKings points in those starts. He has scored as many as 35 DraftKings points. That was 3 starts ago. So there is an upside there, but like you said, a ton of variance. And by the way, to tie this into Jock Market right now, not somebody I'd be willing to bid on Jock Market. A little bit too much variance. And like I said before, the value plays, it kind of shapes out differently. But right now, Willie Cauley-Stein has been bid up to $1.59 on the Jock Market. But one thing also, Dwight Powell, some people, we got a super chat about him. People were asking about him before. Pretty easy to stay away from Dwight Powell now, right?
Agreed. Yeah. Oh, yes and no. Like maybe this takes away some of the ownership from Powell. I doubt it. That's part of the issue. But Powell has really been the main beneficiary. He's seen more minutes the last 2 than Cauley-Stein. 1 minute more the last 2 games ago. They're basically getting close to splitting the minutes. Boban's come in a couple times for he had like a 10-minute rotation against the Kings there. And so he's been filling a couple of those center minutes, but it's basically been like 20-18-8 for the most part for that game 2 games ago. And then the last one, it was just so in favor of Powell. He came out and played 29 minutes there as opposed to Cauley-Stein's 18. Boban didn't really play. So it became much more wonky there. That's why I'm just very worried about this. I think that there's some major variance to what these minutes could be for both of those guys, because Cauley-Stein 3 games ago got up to the high 20s minutes. He was the main beneficiary of everything, and he smashed the slate. So at 3K, you definitely want to roll out a little bit, but I don't know how to peg the minutes.
All right. I am updating my lineups right now. And then also we did get some super chats in here, so we could read off these while we go. From Darren Unger, he's asking Willie Cauley-Stein and Zubats or Looney and Clark. Those are 2 combinations I am not thrilled with, but Willie Cauley-Stein and Zubats would be my preferred combination of the 2.
Yep, mine too, by far. Yeah, for me, that one isn't as close. Brandon Clark, coming in with a crazy amount of ownership for what I think his opportunity is. And he's near a fantasy point per minute guy. So yeah, betting on him there. He had spiked that 29-minute game there, or 23-minute, 29 fantasy point game there. But that feels a little point chasey.
Yeah, that is not something I feel great about. And let's see. So my lineups are updated. Am I getting anything wonky here? Yeah, a little bit. Let's gonna run this again. That is
screw it. Yep, whatever. Dude, this Saban Lee thing, there are no words.
Let's see. I was updating all this, so I haven't seen if any other news came across in the news at this point in time. Like I said, that's also benefit to sticking around. We're getting new starting lineups, unexpected Raptors starting lineup, a somewhat expected Dallas Mavericks starting lineup. Not that we were totally sure what that was going to be. But yeah, definitely some changes being made to my lineups now because of this. And all right, now I have something I feel fairly comfortable with. But are you winning any of your bids on the Jock Market right now?
I just lost like 4 of them there while we were talking. It was like just no love whatsoever there. Just snipe on Stanley Johnson, Fred VanVleet. They are going crazy right now, which is great. I'm happy that they're flying up the board here. Fred VanVleet, I'm going to come back in over. What was his, so comparatively to Gary Trent, who I think I'm still going to come in over the top of a little bit. So Fred VanVleet, 940. So he hasn't reached that point yet. So I can still put a couple $8 bids on him here and feel good about that. So I'm just got 3 shares of him there. And now we'll go back down here to Gary Trent, who he's not in the pool there, is he?
Who Gary Trent?
Yeah.
Let's see.
He's not in the pool.
Gary Trent is.
I was hoping to be getting him because Stanley
Gary
Johnson.
Trent not in. Oh, it would help if I spelled Trent correctly. I spelled I swapped the N and the E, but yeah, Gary Trent still not in, whether I spell it correctly or incorrect.
All right. Well, we'll get Kayla's grammatical school.
Yeah.
We'll figure that out. Oh, that's not nice. I shouldn't say things like that. We love Kayla, but also did not know what Pete said. So that was fantastic. It is kind of a funny looking word now that I think about it. Pecued, if you will.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Anyway, though, guys, if you guys do want to go support Kayla, go subscribe to the go subscribe to at Side Action on YouTube. That is a little side action, spin-off for our Awesemo content. Kayla goes and puts up news, pop news type stuff, and then also kind of gossip type sports news. That is at Side Action HQ on YouTube. We're also running a little giveaway there. We're giving away a month of Awesemo Plus. So just go to the latest video that's been posted there and reply with either your Awesemo Plus username or your Twitter handle, and that'll give you a chance to win an Awesemo Plus account. And here we go. Our guy Anthony Davis left us a super chat. He's saying, fellas, I know that you're currently doing the Jock Market show, but it's all good. We're answering questions about other stuff too. If you had to choose a 3,500 center, oh man, I almost died when I read this question. Why are you choosing between these guys? 3,500 center, Robin Lopez or Okongwu. Who you got? There's no reason to play either of them.
Play Powell if you're going to play any of them because there's an actual 20 plus minutes up. Don't play either of those people. Don't do that to me. Don't do that. Don't play either of them. That had to be kind of a troll, right? That was a little bit of a troll.
3,500 at the center position. Because I didn't even look at 3,500 centers. So let me see if there's somebody 3,500. I don't think Powell's the answer either.
He's the answer compared to what you got. I'm going to say that.
None of these guys are the answer.
Oh, okay.
Is Powell even? And Powell's 4,900 on FanDuel.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Oh, on FanDuel is the question?
Yeah.
3,500 center. Oh, he's talking just center. So he's just got a lineup that he loves, the combination of how it sets up on FanDuel. And he's like, I need to figure out which one to be taking a shot on. All right.
I assume it's a FanDuel question because it was 35. There's different options on DraftKings. So
gotcha.
I assume it's
for my brain, I was thinking because Powell was 3,500 and we were talking about that. If I had to play a $3,500 center, I'm playing Cody Zeller. And I'm not playing Cody Zeller.
That game already started, so that's not an option.
That's not helpful. Can you get to Marc Gasol, 3,600, who played pretty darn well, got up to 17 minutes. If you're going to, I think there's at least like a 15-minute upside for him. I don't think that there's really anything that you're going to get. Okongwu ended up playing 18 minutes, but that was a 30-point blowout. So don't get enamored with playing Okongwu coming off of that game. That really doesn't mean anything. Robin Lopez coming in, played 17. Yeah, so if you can't play Cody Zeller, I guess Robin Lopez is your answer. That was way too much time we spent on that. But Anthony Davis, it was $25. That's why we spent time on that. We can spend $25 worth of time on that question, my dude. Thank you, but don't play either of them.
Yeah, like I would say, listen. If I'm being honest, if you have the potential to, the ability to, I'd swap around your lineup and just open up more salary at center. If you absolutely have to play one of those two guys, then it's going to be Robin Lopez for me. He's the guy who projects the highest for me. I don't, but which by the way is still, I'm looking at 10 fantasy points, but at least, you talked about Marc Gasol, his minutes spiked a little bit last game, but the last 3 games for Robin Lopez, 17 minutes, 16 minutes, 18 minutes. He's a bad play. Okongwu is a bad play. Marc Gasol's a bad play also. But Robin Lopez, if you want to have the slightly least bad play of the group. So,
oh my God, that was so great.
Let's see. I'm still winning a bit on Steph Curry. All right, let's go.
It's fantastic. Let's go. Hang on. So Saban Lee, thank God he's not as crazy differentiated optimal over in the boom bust tool. Only 7% leverage there. Optimal percentage 21.3%. So if I'm getting 20%, I won't lose my mind. Now I don't have to think about that anymore. We can go back to Jock Market. That's good.
All right. So who are you winning bids on now?
I'm winning bids on Isaiah Stewart.
Nice.
which is nifty. I'm not winning on Stanley Johnson anymore. I just got sniped on as we're talking, Fred VanVleet all the way up to $10.50. Oh, you mean people. It's a little bit too expensive for me, but I definitely still think there's upside there. So I can't blame you for it. I would do it if I could. I just can't do it at this point in time. But yeah, Isaiah Stewart's $5. Going to that number. He's right now at 455. I really like getting to him. I'm going to actually add a couple more shares here. Hopefully get him at 475 still. I'll buy a couple more there and see if that can hold for me. Oop, I put 300. I don't have $1,500 in my Jock Market account. So
one sec. I'm going to read. We did get a super chat here from Rio G. He's asking a 3v3 question. This is for FanDuel. Bazemore, Stewart, and Looney, or Dorian Finney-Smith, Doumbouya, and Khem Birch. So those names, Eric: Bazemore, Stewart, Looney on one side, DFS, Doumbouya, and Birch on the other side.
I have 0% Kevon Looney. So that's where my answer is. I have 10% on DraftKings, but I have zero interest in playing a chalky Kevon Looney on FanDuel.
Let's see. Have we had an ownership update? Let's see if is he still chalky. I just closed that page.
I'll pull it up for you here. I got you. Refresh. I'm going to see 420 here. Let's go. Yep. He's still the most expensive, or the highest owned center there. 19.2%.
All right. We have a strong start for Nikola Vucevic. In the first 5 minutes of the game, 2 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals. Kobe White, 6 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. On the Charlotte side right now, nobody really doing anything, and that is the only game in action in the 7:30 time block. So quick starts for Kobe White and Nikola Vucevic. Anyway, what was the Kevon Looney ownership?
19%. So he's still the highest owned center that we have projected here. I ended up getting to a little bit more Vooch on FanDuel because of you. So I might have to send a super chat your way if anything works out nicely in those lineups, because I didn't know what those minutes would look like. They said that there was no minutes limit. I still don't think it gets to 36 or something like that. But low 30s, you tell me Vooch can't go out and win the center position that's not that pretty today, I'd say you were crazy. So definitely like that play and got to 20% of it on FanDuel.
All right, another super chat here from Corey Bomber. He's asking Aaron Holiday and Kyrie Irving or Kevin Durant and Saban Lee on DraftKings. I'm going to lean towards Aaron Holiday and Kyrie Irving. I have a whole bunch of exposure to Holiday right now.
Yeah, I like Aaron Holiday a lot.
Yeah, I just another one. By the way, Saban Lee better not have a really big game now after all this, or at the very least. for a slate like this where there's so much value available, like if he goes out and scores, 22, 23 DraftKings points, like whatever, fine points per dollar play, but not a necessary piece or anything like that. Like then I wouldn't really be kicking myself. He goes scores like 30 plus and I'll be like, I'm a dummy. But right now I don't think he's the minutes upside to really pull off something like that. So let's see. Am I still winning my Steph Curry bids on the Jock Market? I was just outbid. We had a good run.
Womp, 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 womp.
Oh, and the IPO and the IPO period just ended. So I got outbid literally at the last second on my Steph Curry. So somebody coming in.
That is so great.
And just snipe me. Like, and that's not fair. Whoever, there's probably somebody in the YouTube chat. We're out here talking about the games. And so so Steph Curry was the only guy I was winning a bid on. I ended up with nobody here, but obviously after the IPO period, you could still buy and sell players after the slate starts. Who'd you win bids on?
I got a couple Isaiah Stewart. That's about all that I got here. I got it sniped on Stanley Johnson, got sniped on Fred VanVleet, but you know what? That's the way the cookie crumbles.
That is the way it goes. So guys, we are just about wrapping up the show, but don't forget, if you want to get involved, you want to play alongside Eric and I on the Jock Market. Maybe you didn't do it this week. Maybe you did. But if you want to do it next week, go to your app store, download Jock Market, make your first deposit, use the promo code Awesemo. Because if you do that, you'll get a $20 bonus on your first deposit. And the other thing also to keep in mind is that if you're not sure what the fair IPO price is to bid on anybody, go check out Awesemo.com. And we have free IPO prices, IPO projections for every single player. So that is just about going to do it for us. But Eric, closing thoughts on the show. The floor is yours.
Yeah, always fun to be doing a show with you. That hour and a half flew. It was fantastic to talk some Jock Market. Love playing over there. Love being involved with them. So thank you to them for sponsoring the show. Good times were had, and I will see you again tomorrow.
Yes, we will.